Chapter 2373. Soul Guiding Technique. Zhuo was surprised. He glanced at the alchemy flame that was dozing off. He didn't expect the alchemy flame to be so powerful that it could snatch divine pills from the divine pill secret realms. This was the first time he had heard of such a thing. Zhuo Xiaoyu, I hope you can keep this matter a secret for us, the second elder said to Zhuo as he cupped his fists. Second elder, you're too polite. Even if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't tell anyone about this. Zhuo returned the greeting and said, Second elder, I'll leave my clone here with you. I'll take my leave first. Zhuo chatted with the second elder for a while before leaving the pill tower. Of course, before he left the pill tower, he gave Zhuo a lot of calamity crystal or veins so that he could cultivate properly. Zhuo was no longer afraid of the calamity wind, so Zhuo didn't need to suppress it anymore. According to Zhuo's estimation, if he was given another decade or so, his avatar should be able to successfully reach the 19th wind calamity. At that time, Zhuo would be teleported back to the Tower of Hanner. Once he became a third-level true god, he would enter the great Brahma heavenly palace to wait for Muchinchu. As long as he became a third-level true god, he wouldn't be afraid of the great Brahma heavenly palace. At least, the great Brahma heavenly palace wouldn't be able to kill him. After leaving the pill tower, Zhuo found an inn to stay in as he waited for the opening of the divine pill secret realm the next day. The next day, at dawn, the huge square beside the pill tower was already filled with people. When Zhuo arrived at the square, he saw Ma Yujie's fat body in front of him. Brother Zhuo, what a coincidence! I didn't expect to see you here. Ma Yujie said. Zhuo sneered. This guy came to find him on purpose. What a coincidence! Zhuo replied perfunctorily. Brother Zhuo, this time, the life or death pellet will appear in the divine pellet secret realm. Do you want to join forces with me? Ma Yujie whispered to Zhuo Feng. Zhuo shook his head and said, Brother Ma, you worry too much. I have no interest in the life or death pill. Moreover, with my strength, it would be too difficult for me to compete for the life or death pill. Therefore, I will not participate in this matter. Ma Yujie smiled embarrassedly and said, Brother Zhuo is too modest. With your strength, how many people here can be your opponent? As long as the two of us join hands, the chances of getting a life or death pill are still very high. Zhuo shrugged and said, We'll talk about it when the time comes. Hearing this, Ma Yujie did not say anything else. Suddenly, an uproar came from the front of the square. More than a dozen people walked over from the square, and all of them were beautiful women dressed in light muslin. However, these beautiful women all had veils covering their faces, and their eyes were tightly shut. And this group of people was no stranger to everyone. It was Palace Master Jing Yun's group. Yao Xiangjuan mixed in with Palace Master Jing Yun's group, but she was absent-minded. She was still a little worried about Zhuo. Not long after Palace Master Jing Yun came to the square, many forces also came one after another. However, compared to Palace Master Jing Yun, the gap between these forces was too big. There was basically no comparison. When LV Haotian slowly flew over, it caused a big stir again. After all, LV Haotian was a life enlightenment realm expert. In this place, apart from Palace Master Jing Yun, there was no third person who could match his strength. Of course, when LV Haotian came, the crowd was not talking about LV Haotian himself, but about the death of Lu Shendian's group 3 days ago. LV Haotian, who was originally in high spirits, naturally had good hearing. When he came to the square, he heard a lot of gossip. He immediately became angry and killed a few people who did not open their eyes. Only then did the surrounding discussions come to an abrupt end. LV Haotian floated in the air. He looked around at the many cultivators in the square and said coldly, Zhuo, I know you're mixed in with these people. But don't think that I won't recognize you and let you go just because you changed your appearance. No matter where you go, Lu Shendian will not let you go. And today will be the day you die. LV Haotian had just finished his words when a transparent cylindrical bottle appeared in his hand. Inside the bottle, there was a light blue shadow. When Palace Master Jing Yun saw the light blue shadow in the bottle, her face changed slightly. She whispered, "Could this be? Martial Uncle, what is this?" Yao Xiangjuan noticed Palace Master Jing Yun's abnormality, and quickly asked, "This is the soul drawing technique. It is a very vicious method. It is said that the soul drawing technique can collect the broken soul of a cultivator who has just died. Then, after an extremely complicated refinement, this soul will become an evil spirit. And this evil spirit will trace the soul aura of the murderer before his death and find the real culprit. However, generally, after using the soul drawing technique, the dead cultivator's soul will never enter the reincarnation cycle. This LV Haotian actually used the soul drawing technique on ancestor Lu's broken soul. It is really too ruthless." Palace Master Jing Yun looked at LV Haotian in the sky with a complicated expression. "Brother Zhua, you're in trouble. I advise you to run away now. Otherwise, you will have to face LV Haotian later." Ma Yujie, who was standing beside Zhuowen, reminded Zhuowen before disappearing with a swoosh. "That guy ran pretty fast." Zhuowen frowned. It was the first time he heard of the soul drawing technique. Obviously, it was a method to find people. However, the opening of the Divine Pill's secret realm was imminent. How could he leave now? When Zhuowen was hesitating, LV Haotian had already opened the glass bottle. Then, the light blue shadow from the bottle rushed out and hovered above the crowd. Suddenly, the light blue shadow seemed to have sensed something. It immediately chose a direction and rushed away at lightning speed. And the direction the light blue shadow rushed was exactly the direction where Zhuowen was. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He didn't understand how the shadow recognized him. When the light blue shadow appeared above Zhuowen's head, all the cultivators around Zhuowen tacitly dispersed. Immediately, an empty space of several feet appeared around Zhuowen. The light blue shadow floated above his head and bared its fangs and brandished its claws. Its eyes were full of resentment. Zhuowen coldly snorted. A terrifying divine soul crushed the light blue shadow. The light blue shadow screamed and immediately disappeared. At the same time, a terrifying murderous intent instantly locked onto Zhuowen. Zhuowen's body trembled. "Little bastard, you really didn't let me down. You really came to the Divine Pill's secret realm. You won't have the chance to enter the Divine Pill's secret realm because you are going to die now." LV Haotian's voice was full of murderous intent. Then, a terrifying energy fiercely smashed on Zhuowen's chest. Chapter 2374. Mysterious life divine force from Zhuowen destroying the light blue shadow to Lu Haotian repelling Zhuowen. All of this happened in a flash. Before everyone could react, Zhuowen had already vomited blood and retreated under Lu Haotian's attack, his face pale. Numerous gazes converged onto Zhuowen, causing an uproar in the surroundings. "It's him? He's actually at the 7th step of the Void Sky realm. How did he manage to kill Lu Shen Hall's group with this little bit of cultivation?" There were 2 peak 8th step Void Sky cultivators and 1 half-step 9th step Void Sky cultivator. How did he do it? Is there a mistake? It's impossible for a Void Sky 7th step cultivator to kill a half-step Void Sky 9th step cultivator. Even if it's a peak Void Sky 8th step cultivator, it's unlikely. Didn't you see how he blocked Lu Haotian's attack? Although he vomited blood and was injured, he at least blocked it and didn't die. The cultivators around the square all consciously distanced themselves from Zhuowen and Lu Haotian, giving them a large open space. The discussion never stopped from the moment LV Haotian made his move. Most of the people's gazes were all fixed on the seemingly ordinary Zhuowen. "You've already been recognized, yet you still don't show your true face. What's the point of hiding like this?" Lu Haotian had his hands behind his back. Although he was surprised that this little ant could block his attack, he didn't care. From the exchange just now, it could be seen that Zhuowen's strength was indeed extraordinary, but the gap between them was too big. If he wanted to kill Zhuowen, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy, and he returned to his original appearance. He looked coldly at Lu Haotian and said, "Temple Master Lu, this is the territory of the Pill Tower. Private fights are not allowed, right? Are you not putting the Pill Tower in your eyes?" Lu Haotian sneered and said, "Little bastard, you're just an ant. After killing you, I will explain to the person in charge of the Pill Tower." Not far away, Jing Yun's beautiful eyes were closed. She was facing Zhuowen as if she was looking at him. She said in a low voice, "This kid is indeed not simple. However, he won't be able to live for long." Although this Zhuowen had the strength to kill a half-step Void Sky Ninth Ascension, compared to a Life Enlightenment Realm cultivator, a half-step Void Sky Ninth Ascension was like an ant. If LV Haotian wanted to kill Jiudeng, he would only need half a move. On the other hand, Zhuowen wouldn't be able to kill Jiudeng without using all of his skills. Therefore, in front of a powerhouse like Lu Haotian, Zhuowen was still like an ant. It wouldn't be difficult for LV Haotian to kill him. "Martial Uncle, Zhuowen is my friend. He saved my life. Martial Uncle, please give me some face and save Zhuowen." Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful face was slightly pale. She hurriedly pleaded with Jing Yun. Jing Yun frowned and said, "Xiangjuan, Martial Uncle can't help you with this matter. If LV Haotian insists on killing Zhuowen, I can't stop him. Moreover, once I stop him, I will anger LV Haotian. At that time, the Divine Pill Secret Realm will suffer his revenge. This is not a good plan. Moreover, I have already promised you that I won't make a move against Zhuowen. I really didn't make a move. This is the biggest concession I can make. It's impossible for me to help this Zhuowen." Yao Xiangjuan's face was slightly pale. She bit her lower lip. She knew that Palace Master Jing Yun wouldn't make a move because of her. Asking Palace Master Jing Yun to make a move was indeed a bit excessive. Yao Xiangjuan knew her own limits. Even if she ran over to help Zhuowen, she would only be a burden. She was too weak. "Do you have any last words? If not, you can go to hell." LV Haotian coldly snorted. His right hand turned into a claw, and surging divine power burst out. This terrifying divine power even contained the power of the heavenly Tao. The power of the heavenly Tao mixed with his own divine power, forming a full force of vigorous vitality. This energy was called the mysterious life divine power by cultivators. The mysterious life divine power was the symbol of stepping into the life enlightenment realm. It also represented that one had officially stepped into the Void Sky 9 step. The mysterious life divine power was of a much higher level than divine power. This was the most important reason why the Void Sky 9 steps was superior to other Void Sky cultivators. After all, the mysterious life divine power and ordinary divine power were not on the same level. The Death Enlightenment realm above the Life Enlightenment realm would give birth to a second type of divine power. This type of divine power was called the Mysterious Death Divine Power. The Mysterious Death Divine Power's power was above the Mysterious Life Divine Power. Moreover, it was even more terrifying than the Mysterious Life Divine Power. And after reaching the third realm of the Void Sky 9 steps, the Life and Death extremes, the Mysterious Life Divine Power and the Mysterious Death Divine Power in the body would be combined and transformed into the Life and Death Divine Power. Just now, LV Haotian's attack did not contain the Mysterious Life Divine Power, so although Zhuowen seemed to be in a sorry state, he did not suffer any serious injuries. However, it was different now. At this moment, LV Haotian was attacking with all his might, and the mysterious life god power was mercilessly spitting out. That throbbing aura caused the hearts of Zhuowen and even the surrounding cultivators to involuntarily jump. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. This was not the first time he had experienced this throbbing emotion. Back then, when he met Mu Chen Shui at the waning moon, he had also been this scared witless. At that time, under Mu Qinshue's attack, he had no power to resist and could only passively defend. In the end, he had to flee in panic. At that time, Mu Qinshu should also be in the life-comprehending realm. However, at that time, Mu Qinshu was seriously injured and could not display 100% of her strength. Now, LV Haotian was also in the same realm. Moreover, his strength was at its peak. The mysterious life divine power he displayed was much stronger than Mu Qinshu at that time. Although Zhuowen's strength had also increased a lot during this period of time, facing a life-comprehending realm expert like LV Haotian, Zhuowen was still somewhat powerless. In addition, Zhuowen's clone was temporarily placed on the 10th floor of the Pill Pagoda. He had no confidence in being able to withstand LV Haotian's attack, unless he used the spacetime ability, the Waning Sun on the Sea. However, once he used the spacetime ability, he would immediately be exhausted. Even if he had the heavenly domain Starry Sky essence to consume, the spacetime injuries caused by the spacetime ability were not so easy to heal. Just as Zhuowen's mind was filled with thoughts, LV Haotian's palm had already descended. The terrifying aura was like countless huge waves sweeping up in the vast ocean, suppressing the surrounding square, causing many of the surrounding cultivators to cough up blood and reveal fear in their eyes. The terrifying killing intent firmly locked onto Zhuowen, making it difficult for Zhuowen to dodge. He could only passively welcome the incoming terrifying palm. Looking at the palm that was getting closer and closer, Zhuowen sighed in his heart and prepared to use the Waning Sun on the Sea. Chapter 2375. The Divine Pill Secret Realm opens rumble. Suddenly, a blazing flame rose in front of Zhuowen and turned into a thick wall of fire. The flame was extremely strong, as if it could burn everything in the world into nothingness. The moment the terrifying palm hit the wall of fire, a crackling sound rang out. Then, the wall of fire collapsed, and the palm formed by the mysterious life divine energy also collapsed. Zhuowen was surprised, and his gaze fell on the front of the square. There, 8 figures walked out. The gray-robed old man at the front slowly withdrew his withered palm. The terrifying wall of fire just now was released by this gray-robed old man. It was also this gray-robed old man who helped Zhuowen block LV Haotian's full-force palm. Zhuowen was no stranger to this gray-robed old man. He was the Pill Tower's second elder. Although the second elder's aura was only at the half-step virtual sky 9th step, Zhuowen knew that the second elder was not as simple as he looked. The wall of fire released by the second elder easily blocked LV Haotian's palm. He knew that the second elder's strength was not weaker than LV Haotian's. Everyone in the square narrowed their eyes and looked at the second elder with a much more solemn expression. The Pill Tower's 9 great elders were not known for their powerful cultivation, but for their alchemy skills. Therefore, although the 9 great elders' cultivation was not high, their alchemy skills were unparalleled in the world. They could refine many precious divine pills. Because the 9 grand elders' alchemy skills were too famous, most cultivators neglected the fact that the 9 grand elders were actually not weak cultivators. Of course, the 9 great elders' cultivation could only be considered above average, and there was still a gap between them and the top experts. However, the second elder, who did not reveal his strength, blocked LV Haotian's attack in one move. This made many cultivators look at him in a new light. Even LV Haotian's pupils shrank. This was the first time he saw the second elder make a move, and it was so powerful. Hall Master LV, the Divine Pill Secret Realm is about to open. Why are you causing trouble in my pill tower? The second elder clasped his hands behind his back. His gaze passed through the crowd and fell on LV Haotian and Zhuowen. The second elder first glanced at Zhuowen, and then stared at Lu Haotian, his eyes serious and indifferent. Lu Haotian's eyes flickered. He immediately cupped his hands at the second elder and said, "Second elder, you probably don't know. This boy is called Zhuowen. His behavior is extremely vile. Not only did he kill my son in front of everyone, but he also killed many elites of my Shrine Lu. This brat directly put his finger on my nose. This is simply intolerable. If I don't kill this brat, where will Shrine Lu's face go? I hope that second elder can give face to my Shrine Lu. Before Lu Haotian could finish his words, he was interrupted by the second elder. Palace Master Lu, you don't have to say these pompous words to me. I once made a rule that private fights are not allowed around the pill tower, but you knowingly broke the law. Aren't you looking down on my pill tower too much? Do you think the pill tower is your Shrine Lu's territory? The second elder said rudely. Lu Haotian was stunned. He didn't expect the second elder to be so angry. In his opinion, Zhuowen was just a nameless nobody. The second elder didn't need to be angry with his Shrine Lu for such a nobody. It wasn't worth it at all. However, the second elder did so. Moreover, from his attitude, Lu Haotian could vaguely see that the second elder seemed to be protecting Zhuowen. Palace Master Lu, if there's a next time, don't blame me for canceling your quota, the second elder said coldly. Lu Haotian also realized the seriousness of the situation. He quickly cupped his hands and said, "Second elder, please calm down. This time I was foolish. There won't be a next time." Although Lu Haotian was very unhappy with the second elder's attitude, this was not his territory. He couldn't do as he pleased. If the pill tower cancelled his quota, even if he didn't want to, there was nothing he could do. The second elder nodded calmly. Then, he looked around and said, "Today is the day that the Divine Pill Secret Realm opens. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the Divine Pill Secret Realm, so I won't go into details." After saying this, the second elder waved his sleeve. Suddenly, the burning alchemy fire above the pill tower behind him changed violently. Then, it turned into a fire dragon and rushed toward the sky. In an instant, the sky changed color. The fire dragon circled the sky and dyed the whole sky red. The whole sky seemed to be surrounded by flames. It looked gorgeous and terrifying. Everyone in the square looked up at the sky. They knew that the second elder was now using the alchemy fire to open the Divine Pill Secret Realm. At this moment, the other 7 elders behind the second elder were all forming hand seals and helping the second elder to open the Divine Pill Secret Realm. After a while, the fire dragon disappeared into the sky. Then, a huge cauldron-shaped hole appeared in the sky. It was pitch black inside the cauldron. It was about 1,000 feet wide, and could accommodate hundreds of people at once. This is the entrance to the Divine Pill Secret Realm. Everyone, please enter the entrance in order. Don't break the order. Otherwise, your qualification to enter the Divine Pill Secret Realm will be cancelled. The second elder took a deep breath and pointed at the hole in the sky. After the second elder said this, all the cultivators in the square immediately rushed toward the cauldron in the sky. Although the cultivators rushed into the sky in a chaotic manner, they didn't forget the second elder's words. They didn't push each other. Instead, they entered the hole in the sky in an orderly manner. Little friend Zhua, be careful of that Lu Haotian. Judging from his appearance, I'm afraid he won't let you go after entering the Divine Pill Secret Realm. Why don't you not enter the Divine Pill Secret Realm this time, and just stay in the pill tower? If you need divine pills, the pill tower will give you a certain amount to help you cultivate. When Zhuowen was watching the other cultivators enter the entrance, a voice transmission sounded in his mind. Zhuowen wasn't unfamiliar with this voice transmission. It was from the second elder of the pill tower. "Second elder, thank you for your help just now. Although your suggestion is good, I don't plan to stay in the pill tower. I'll be careful of Lu Haotian." Zhuowen replied. Although the pill tower would get a lot of divine pills after the Divine Pill Secret Realm closed, Zhuowen knew that most of the good divine pills would be taken by the cultivators who entered the Divine Pill Secret Realm. The divine pills that the pill tower could get were of inferior quality and efficacy. Zhuo was a person who strived for perfection. Therefore, he still planned to enter the Divine Pill secret realm and explore it himself. Even if LV Haotian had his eyes on him, he still planned to enter the Divine Pill secret realm. After all, the way to enter the Divine Pill secret realm was random. Zhuo didn't think that his luck would be so bad that he would meet LV Haotian as soon as he entered the Divine Pill secret realm. Moreover, he had the map given to him by the second elder. He was confident that he would gain a lot in the Divine Pill secret realm. As for the Pill Tower, he didn't believe that the Pill Tower would give him unlimited divine pills. Chapter 2376. Extraordinary. Since that's the case, be careful. Seeing that Zhuo didn't intend to give up, the second elder didn't try to persuade him any further. He only told Zhuo to pay attention to Lu Haotian. During this time, Yao Xiangjuan also transmitted her voice to Zhuo. Zhuo just casually chatted with Yao Xiangjuan and found a reason to end the rumors. Lu Haotian and Palace Master Jingyun had discussed his matter in the restaurant and even planned to cooperate. And Yao Xiangjuan was Jingyun's martial niece. Zhuo couldn't guarantee that Yao Xiangjuan wouldn't betray him, so he didn't want to get too close to Yao Xiangjuan. Yao Xiangjuan was sensitive to Zhuo's thoughts. Although she wanted to explain to Zhuo, she could only sigh in her heart when she saw Zhuo's cold expression. She knew that the conversation between Jingyun and Lu Haotian had already caused Zhuo's distrust. Now that Zhuo was on guard against her, it was normal for him to be wary of her. But Yao Xiangjuan's heart ached. She didn't know why she felt this kind of heartache. Xiangjuan, we should also go in. Palace Master Jingyun reminded the dazed Yao Xiangjuan. Martial aunt, let's wait a little longer. There are still a lot of people here. Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes fell on Zhuo and said absent-mindedly. Seeing Yao Xiangjuan's expression, Jingyun helplessly shook her head. She could only follow Yao Xiangjuan's temperament. It's almost time to go. Zhuo saw that there weren't many people in the square. He stepped on the air and flew towards the entrance. Of course, when he set off, he paid special attention to Lu Haotian, guarding against the possibility that this guy would attack him. When Zhuo flew out, Lu Haotian sneered and followed behind Zhuo. Zhuo's heart sank. His gaze fell on the second elder below. He saw the second elder frowning but didn't say anything. Lu Haotian's behavior didn't violate the rules of the Pill Tower. The second elder couldn't find any fault with it. Naturally, there was no reason for Lu Haotian to stop following Zhuo. However, after flying for a while, Zhuo found that Lu Haotian didn't make a move, but just followed behind him. Zhuo was relieved, but he didn't relax his vigilance. After all, Zhuo still didn't know whether LV Haotian would suddenly make a move. He had to be wary of this guy. When Zhuo approached the entrance and was about to enter, a strong sense of danger welled up in his heart. Boom! LV Haotian, who was not far behind Zhuo, suddenly launched an attack and punched towards Zhuo's back. Yao Xiangjuan was in Palace Master Jingyun's team. She had been paying attention to Zhuo. Seeing Lu Haotian suddenly attack, she hurriedly said, Zhuo, watch your back. Even without Yao Xiangjuan's reminder, Zhuo also knew the danger behind him. Zhuo twisted his waist and immediately summoned the phagocytosis, which turned into 100 feet in size and blocked behind him. Bang! Unfortunately, Lu Haotian's punch completely poured out his mysterious life divine power. The phagocytosis was directly blasted away, and Lu Haotian's punch directly smashed towards Zhuo's chest. If Lu Haotian's mysterious life divine power smashed into his chest, Zhuo knew that he wouldn't be able to survive. Zhuo didn't even think about it. He bent his right hand and used the space-time ability Waning Sun over the sea without hesitation. Suddenly, a terrifying space-time ability filled Zhuo's body and turned into a vast ocean. Behind him, a bright red waning sun rose from the sea. The waning sun gradually rose, and a terrifying power spread out. The smile on Lu Haotian's face froze, and the punch that was originally thrown out stopped in an instant. Then Lu Haotian found that the aura in his body was boiling violently. Under the influence of the space-time ability, it was about to burst out of his body and burst into a cloud of blood mist at any time. Space-time ability. Lu Haotian's eyes revealed a look of surprise, but soon calmed down. Instead, it was replaced by an even stronger killing intent. No wonder he could kill the half-step Void Sky ninth step of their Shrine Lu this time. It turned out that he had mastered space-time ability, and it was such a powerful space-time ability. Lu Haotian knew that this kid was merely at the 7th step of the Void Sky realm, yet he had grasped the ability of space and possessed such terrifying combat strength. If this kid's cultivation was even stronger, then wouldn't it be difficult for even him to suppress this kid? Lu Haotian naturally knew that he had to eliminate the roots as soon as possible. Especially after knowing that Zhuowen was so strong, it was even more impossible to leave him alive. Once he was left alive, he would be a huge disaster in the future. Lu Haotian growled, forcibly suppressing the influence of the waning sun above the sea. Lu Haotian's right foot suddenly stepped forward, and his right fist, which had been stopped by the power of the waning sun, moved again. This punch was the full strength of Lu Haotian's life, and it was also his killing blow. Bang bang bang! Wherever this punch passed, the space-time ability was completely out of control, and it was completely unable to leave a trace of this punch. Zhuowen gritted his teeth and pointed his finger again. The waning sun, which had risen to the highest point, began to descend, and the direction of the waning sun was in front of Zhuowen. This waning sun rose from behind and fell in front of him, containing the samsara of the waning sun's rise and fall. Zhuowen naturally paid a heavy price for forcing the waning sun to descend. His face was pale, he spat out blood, and his eyes revealed an extremely painful look. This was the huge aftereffect of making the waning sun descend. The waning sun finally fell directly in front of Zhuowen, and Lu Haotian's fist came one after another, smashing heavily into the waning sun. Boom! The terrifying aftereffect of the collision turned into violent ripples, spreading in all directions. Some of the cultivators who were close to the entrance, who had originally planned to enter the entrance, exploded into a cloud of blood mist the moment the ripples approached them. Even some powerful cultivators turned pale and spat out a mouthful of blood the moment they came into contact with the ripples. Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood, and then he saw the waning sun shatter. The moment the waning sun shattered, Zhuowen did not hesitate to take out the space-time wheel and enter the space-time wheel. He immediately disappeared and entered the entrance of the Divine Pill Secret Realm. The moment Zhuowen entered the entrance of the Divine Pill Secret Realm, the waning sun finally shattered, and Lu Haotian retreated hundreds of steps. His fist was completely charred at this moment, trembling slightly, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. What a powerful space-time ability! It actually injured me. Lu Haotian muttered to himself with a gloomy face. Many of the surrounding cultivators were staring at this scene in a daze at this moment. Everyone would never forget the beautiful moment when the waning sun rose and fell. Who would have thought that a mere Void Sky 7th step cultivator would not only survive the attack of a life enlightenment state expert, but also use such a terrifying ability to escape. Chapter 2377. A strange tortoise. Lu Haotian, you're being impudent. Didn't I say earlier that my words fell on deaf ears? The second elder's face sank, and he did not hesitate to release a flame, which turned into a huge flame palm and blasted towards L.V. Haotian. L.V. Haotian's eyes flickered. He didn't answer the second elder's question. Instead, he pushed off with his right foot and entered the entrance. The second elder's attack missed, but there was nothing he could do. Even if he wanted to teach L.V. Haotian a lesson, if L.V. Haotian didn't fight with him, he couldn't do anything. Moreover, he didn't have the ability to close the entrance of the Divine Pill Secret Realm. Once the Divine Pill Secret Realm was opened, it would operate on its own. Until it closed, the pill tower wouldn't be able to do anything. The battle between LV Hautien and Zhuowen was just a disturbance. Soon, the remaining cultivators once again entered the entrance of the Divine Pill secret realm in an orderly manner. Yao Xiangjuan, who was deeply worried, was also brought into the Divine Pill secret realm's entrance by Palace Master Jing Yun. Pucci. Below a cliff, a wretched figure fell to the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood, staining the ground. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. At this moment, his injuries were extremely serious. LV Hautien could be said to be ruthless. That punch was simply aimed at his life. If it wasn't for Zhuowen forcefully using Waning Sun at the sea, would he still be alive? Moreover, Zhuowen had also used this divine ability in excess. Not only did he raise the sun, but he also made it descend. He had never tried this before, but its power was indeed extraordinary. But correspondingly, Zhuowen was unable to bear the heavy pressure brought about by the descent of the setting sun, causing his injuries to worsen. Now, Zhuowen's flesh wounds had basically been healed by the heavenly domain starry sky essence, but the space-time injuries were extremely serious. It was so serious that even if he used the space-time power, he would feel unbearable pain. Sigh. This Lu Hautien is really ruthless. Even though the second elder had spoken first, he still didn't let me go and actually killed me in the end. If I become stronger in the future, I will definitely not let this person off. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy, and his killing intent towards LV Hautien had reached its peak. To Zhuowen, space-time injuries were truly terrifying. He would probably need to slowly recuperate. During this process of recuperation, Zhuowen basically could not mobilize the power of space-time rules. He could only use divine power. Zhuowen sat on a rock and began to look around. He found that he was in a valley surrounded by rock walls, and he was located on the east side of the valley. This valley was overgrown with weeds and looked extremely desolate. In the middle of the valley there was a crystal-clear pool. The pond was azure in color, like a huge sapphire. It was extremely beautiful. Zhuowen took out the map given to him by the second patriarch, and when he realized that this valley wasn't a dangerous place in the Divine Pill secret realm, he felt a lot more relieved. Normally, the opening of the Divine Pill secret realm would last for about 3 years. Within these 3 years, one could explore the Divine Pill secret realm as they wished, and any divine pills they found would naturally belong to them. Swoosh! Suddenly, the blue pool in the middle of the valley splashed out a lot of water, and then 2 broken corpses were thrown out of the pool, falling not far from Zhuowen. Zhuowen noticed that the 2 corpses belonged to a man and a woman. However, these 2 corpses were basically incomplete and they looked extremely horrifying. Zhuowen's eyes slightly narrowed. He could see that these 2 corpses had died not long ago. They were probably the cultivators who came in before him, and they didn't expect to die in this pool. Moreover, from the looks of these 2 corpses, they were gnawed by some ferocious beast. It seemed that this beautiful pool wasn't as calm as it looked on the surface. Roar! Suddenly, a deafening beast roar came from the pool, and then a towering pillar of water shot up to the sky. Immediately, a black shadow rushed out of the water pillar, and rushed towards Zhuowen as fast as lightning. Zhuowen snorted coldly, and suddenly pulled out the king's sword from the spiritual ring, and swept it out. Suddenly, a water-like sword light poured out, and heavily bombarded the black shadow. Ouch! The aggressive black shadow was hit by the surging sword light, and it actually cried out in pain like a human. Then, it directly smashed into the rock wall behind it, and its whole body was embedded in the rock wall. Zhuowen finally saw the true face of this black shadow. It was actually a huge tortoise. Moreover, this tortoise was completely different from ordinary tortoises. Its body was half a person's size, and the tortoise shell seemed to be made of black iron, emitting a cold and sharp aura. The head of the tortoise that extended out from the tortoise shell was also not an ordinary tortoise's head. It actually felt like a dragon's head. Moreover, although Zhuowen had sent this strange tortoise flying with his sword, his king's sword actually shook violently, as if it couldn't bear it any more. It could be seen that this strange tortoise's shell was too hard. Ouch! Ouch! It hurts, your Lord Tortoise. The strange tortoise that was embedded in the rock wall kept struggling to get out of the rock wall, and rolled on the ground. Zhuowen slightly frowned. He was afraid that this strange tortoise was a trick, so he took a step forward, and mercilessly kicked it with his right foot. Then, the tortoise wailed and was kicked away again, and then heavily smashed into the rock wall behind it, and was embedded in the rock wall again. And this time, the tortoise was embedded even deeper. Even if its four limbs kept struggling, it still couldn't get out. I say, why are you like this? I'm telling you, you can't do anything more than 3 times. If you dare to touch Lord Tortoise again, I'll kill you. The tortoise once again dug into the rock wall, and unceremoniously said ruthless words to Zhuowen. But just as the tortoise finished speaking, Zhuowen's right foot unceremoniously stepped over, and directly stomped down into the small hole that the tortoise had smashed out. The tortoise was almost unable to move, and was even more embedded into the rock wall. This time, the tortoise completely lost its temper, and hurriedly begged for mercy. My little ancestor, I was wrong, okay? I was really wrong, please don't step on me, I'm scared. Zhuowen was speechless as he looked at this superb tortoise. This guy had no filter on his mouth. How could he be the same as Xiao He and the Blood Immortal? Did you kill those 2 people? Zhuowen pulled out his right foot, and asked as he pointed at the 2 corpses that were thrown out of the pool. The tortoise furtively looked at the 2 corpses, and hurriedly said, Ouch, you've wronged me, I've never eaten people, really, human flesh doesn't taste good, don't talk nonsense. Zhuowen kicked the tortoise again, and said indifferently, In this pool, other than you, what other ferocious beast could eat them? If you're lying, I'll kill you directly. Chapter 2378. Roasted Tortoise. Zhuowen sneered. He raised the king's sword in his right hand, and pulled out the tortoise that was embedded in the rock wall. Immediately after, he slashed at the tortoise again and again. When the tortoise saw that the situation was not good, it immediately shrank back into the tortoise shell, and did not come out, leaving only the shell outside. Bang! 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 Zhuowen slashed out again and again, landing on the surface of the tortoise shell. Sparks constantly flew out, making for a beautiful and colorful sight. Bang! Zhuowen slashed at the tortoise shell for the last time. With a bang, the tortoise shell flew out and smashed into the ground not far away. At this moment, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He found that there were traces of cracks on the surface of the king's sword. On the other hand, the tortoise shell was not damaged at all. Although the king's sword was not a secondary heaven-breaking divine artifact, it was not comparable to an ordinary void sky divine artifact. Its power was even more powerful. However, when he used the king's sword to slash at the tortoise shell, it was actually almost destroyed by the king's sword. This tortoise shell was too hard, wasn't it? Thinking of this, Zhuowen waved his sleeve and immediately summoned 2 divine swords. These 2 divine swords were naturally the Thunderfire Sword and the Blood Immortal Sword. These 2 guys had been staying in the Zhonglan's secret realm, and had been consuming Zhuowen's resources. Now they should do something. Kid, what did you call us for? Xiao He sat on the Thunderfire Sword, and her gaze involuntarily fell on the tortoise shell not far away. This tortoise shell is very hard. Help me split it open. Zhuowen pointed at the tortoise shell and said, He, you want to split this Lord Tortoise? Lord Tortoise, let me tell you, I am the #1 mount under Di Danhua. You, a mere ant, want to split this Lord Tortoise? You are simply lying through your teeth. If this Lord Tortoise saw that you were too weak and did not want to fight, would you still be alive? A triumphant voice came from the tortoise shell. Zhuowen was speechless. This tortoise was simply a wretched bone. Its mouth was even more wretched than Xiao Hei's. It obviously could not beat him, but it insisted that it did not want to fight. Wasn't it too proud? However, Zhuowen was rather interested in the Di Danhua's Di Danhua. Who is Di Danhua? Zhuowen asked. You don't even know Di Danhua. Di Danhua is. The tortoise seemed to have realized something. He quickly shut his mouth and said indifferently, You want to trick me? I'm telling you, there's no way. Get out of here before I don't want to do anything. While Xiaohe was Xiaohe's, Xiaohe was the king as lord. As he looks Zhaozi's Blackie, this cowardly tortoise's shell is very hard. My king's sword hacked at it dozens of times and almost broke the sword. Zhuowen pointed at the cracked king's sword to Blackie. Blackie sneered and said, Kid, aren't you just a coward? What's so difficult about it? Little blood disciple, go get some props. Little blood disciple looked at Xiaohe's eyes and quickly nodded. Then, he disappeared from where he was. After a while, the blood celestial sword returned with several small stone pillars. The blood celestial sword was very nimble. Soon, the stone pillars were set up into a grill. Boy, I'm counting on you for the flame. Blacka laughed evilly at Zhuowen. Soon after, it rushed to the side of the tortoise. With a flick of its sword, the tortoise shell was lifted up by it. It flew into the air and landed on the grill. Zhuowen, on the other hand, summoned the void sky divine fire in his body. It burned fiercely under the grill. The lush flame looked extremely horrifying. The tortoise obviously did not know the intentions of Zhuowen and Xiaohe. It was still hiding in its shell and laughing. But soon, it felt that something was wrong. The tortoise shell was getting hotter and hotter, and its whole body was burning as if it was in a furnace. Ouch! Who is it? Who is setting the fire outside? The tortoise shouted. Unfortunately, no one responded. It felt that something was wrong. Coupled with the rising temperature of the tortoise shell, it was almost suffocating. Master Tortoise can't take it anymore. F***ck. Finally, the tortoise poked its head out. Then, it saw a scene that it would never forget in its life. Its shell was tied up on a grill, and there was a big fire burning under the grill. Wasn't this a roasted tortoise? After a long silence, the tortoise looked up to the sky and howled like a hungry wolf. This howl was filled with grief, indignation, and the feeling of having no love left in this life. The tortoise wanted to break free. Unfortunately, there was a powerful restriction around the tortoise shell. The tortoise could not break free at all. How dare you insult me? This is equivalent to insulting the imperial elixir fire. All of you will be drowned in a pig cage. The tortoise also noticed the white-robed young man standing in front of it. It could not help but roar. Zhuowen revealed an innocent expression and said, This was not my idea. It was him. As Zhuowen spoke, he pointed behind the tortoise. The tortoise turned its head in confusion. It just so happened to see two divine swords floating behind him. One of the divine swords exuded the energy of lightning and fire. There was a Xiaohe dog sitting cross-legged on the hilt of the divine sword, looking at the tortoise mockingly. As for the sword spirit of the other divine sword, it was diligently massaging the shoulders and back of the Xiaohe dog. This scene was very strange. Yoho, my family's pitiful little tortoise. I'm really sorry for tying you to the grill and roasting you. However, I've never tasted a roasted tortoise before. I want to try it today, so I'll have to ask little tortoise to satisfy my craving. I'll have to bear with it and let the void sky divine fire cook it. I want to taste it. Xiaohe laughed mischievously. Seeing Xiaohe's mocking smile, the tortoise trembled. This Xiaohe dog seemed to be even more vicious than itself. The tortoise hurriedly squeezed out a smile and said, I say, big brother dog, tortoise meat is not delicious. Trust me, don't roast it. Big brother dog? Who are you calling big brother dog? Xiaohe suddenly jumped, and all the hair on its body stood on end. It looked at the tortoise with extreme hostility. Xiaohe hated being called a dog the most. It felt that this title was a kind of insult. The tortoise's expression stiffened, and it hurriedly corrected itself. My lord, I was wrong. Please let me go. Tortoise meat is really disgusting. I'm not lying to you. Xiao Hei sat back down on the hilt of the sword and crossed its legs. It looked as if it was in its 70s or 80s, and it completely ignored the tortoise's pleas for mercy. Tell me about those two corpses. What's going on? Zhuowen asked. The tortoise was much more obedient now. Although the flames roasted it below made it sweat profusely, and it was in so much pain that it wanted to die, it really couldn't act tough now. Yes. I was the one who killed those two corpses, and I was also the one who ate their meat. Although I swore that I wouldn't eat meat and would only eat vegetables, these two guys were like lambs in a tiger's den. I couldn't resist, so I ate them. You can't blame me for this, they were the ones who delivered themselves to me. Chapter 2379. Xingyan Basket Stonezhuowen nodded. The cultivation of the man and woman was not high, so it was reasonable for them to die in the hands of this tortoise. However, what surprised Zhuowen was that the turtle's shell was too hard. It was definitely the hardest turtle shell that Zhuowen had ever seen. Even the king's sword was almost broken. Zhuowen knew that this tortoise's origin was not simple. However, this tortoise's strength was a bit too weak. It was probably around Void Sky 6 levels. Why do they want to go to the bottom of the pool? Zhuowen asked indifferently. The tortoise froze and then fell into silence. Zhuowen didn't pursue the matter. Instead, he silently looked at the tortoise. The Void Sky Divine Fire was still burning. This fellow wouldn't be able to endure for much longer. Sure enough, 2 hours later, the tortoise began to twist its body. It was clearly unable to endure the terrifying temperature. As long as you tell me the purpose of those two people entering the pool, I'll let you go, Zhuowen said patiently. The turtle looked at Zhuowen and hesitated for a long time. In the end, it couldn't bear the roasting of the flames and hurriedly said, "It's burning me to death. I'll tell you everything. Quickly put me down." Zhuowen waved his sleeve and extinguished the fire under the grill. Then he looked at the turtle and said, "Speak." The turtle sighed and said, "Those two fellows came for the Nebula Basket Rock Mine. I don't know how those two knew that there was a Nebula Basket Rock Mine in the pool. You must know that this place is already considered an extremely remote place, yet it was still found by those two. Star Flare Basket Rock Mine." Zhuowen's eyes lit up with joy. Zhuowen had heard of the Celestial Flame Basket Rock Mine before. It was a supreme-grade artifact forging material. It was said that any artifact that was added into the Celestial Flame Basket Rock Mine would eventually transform into a secondary heaven-breaking divine artifact. It was a 1-in-a-million artifact forging materials in the universe. He didn't expect to find such a good item as soon as he entered the Divine Pill secret realm. It seemed like his luck was not bad. "Take me there," Zhuowen said indifferently. "Then you should let me go," the tortoise hurriedly said. Zhuowen sneered. With a wave of his sleeve, he opened the restrictive spell around the tortoise. However, he didn't release the tortoise. Instead, he grabbed it with one hand. "Bring me there now. I'll let you go after we find the Nebula Basket Rock Mine." As Zhuowen spoke, he gave a look to Xiao Hei and the Blood Immortal. The two of them turned into two rays of light and circled behind Zhuowen. Zhuowen took a step forward and plunged into the depths of the Azure Pond, causing countless splashes. After the tortoise had been trained, it was much more well-behaved. However, its mouth was not inferior to Xiao Hei's at all. Along the way, it kept talking about Master Tortoise, which gave Zhuowen a headache. As he continued to dive deeper, the pool became darker and darker. "We're almost there." Suddenly, the turtle hurriedly said. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and released his powerful divine sense. Immediately, he discovered that about 100 meters ahead of him, there was a cliff that rose from the ground. This cliff stood at the bottom of the pool and looked very ordinary. "It's here." Zhuowen pointed at the cliff and said, "Yes, the Nebula Basket Rock Mine is inside this cliff. However, there is very little of it. You can go inside and look for it. The tortoise nodded and said. Zhuowen nodded and approached the cliff. Soon, he landed on the cliff. A sense of crisis immediately rose in Zhuowen's mind. Then, a huge tentacle suddenly grabbed from the depths of the cliff and instantly wrapped around Zhuowen's waist. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. The blood immortal sword and thunder fire sword beside him turned into two rays of sword light and instantly cut the tentacle into countless pieces. Blood splattered everywhere. A painful roar came from the depths of the cliff. Then, more tentacles swept out and instantly blocked Zhuowen's path of retreat. This is the Nebula Basket Rock mine you were talking about? Zhuowen coldly looked at the tortoise. The latter's body trembled. Zhuowen ignored the tortoise. He pulled out his emperor's sword and swung it. All the tentacles that swept over were all chopped into pieces. At the same time, Zhuowen took out the void-destroying meteor and 9 extinction divine rune sword. Using his powerful divine sense, he controlled the 2 secondary heaven-breaking divine tools to continuously destroy the surrounding tentacles. Roar! In the depths of the cliff, the fierce beast seemed to be enraged and suddenly rushed out. Only now did Zhuowen see the true appearance of the fierce beast. The appearance of the fierce beast is very similar to a huge octopus. However, the surface of its huge head is covered with strange barbs. The fierce beast has no eyes. However, it has a huge malevolent mouth. The huge mouth is filled with sharp fangs. It looks extremely fierce. Countless tentacles instantly sealed the surrounding space. Then, they swept towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. He still has a space-time injury on his body. Currently, it is very difficult for him to mobilize the space-time power. It is very difficult for him to dodge these tentacles with his cultivation alone. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and took out the space-time wheel. His feet stepped on the space-time wheel. Instantly, the space-time wheel disappeared and the surrounding space-time was distorted. Tentacles swept over, but Zhuowen was like a shadow. He constantly flashed and dodged these invading tentacles. Every time Zhuowen dodged a tentacle, the surrounding divine swords would mercilessly cut off the tentacles. In an instant, the entire cliff was flooded with blood. Zhuowen, with the help of the space-time wheel, was constantly approaching the fierce beast's head. Boom! The fierce beast opened its mouth and spat out a dark green poisonous arrow. It immediately rushed towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen coldly snorted. He took out the phagocytosis in front of him and blocked the poisonous arrow. After blocking the poisonous arrow, the space-time around Zhuowen distorted. He disappeared behind the phagocytosis and appeared on the fierce beast's head. Silencing Meteor, 9 Extinction Divine Rune Sword, Blood Immortal Sword, Thunder Fire Sword, and the King's Sword in his hand all slashed out, mercilessly leaving merciless marks on the fierce beast's head. Suddenly, Zhuowen opened a huge hole in the fierce beast's head. Then, he drilled into the hole. The 5 weapons beside him were like drills, constantly drilling the bloody hole deeper and bigger. The fierce beast kept roaring, but it was useless. Zhuowen was like a madman. He kept going into the fierce beast's body through the bloody hole. Whoosh! Zhuowen suddenly drilled out from the other side of the fierce beast's head. He actually directly penetrated the fierce beast's head. Roar! The fierce beast looked up to the sky and roared. Then, its body twitched and it completely lost its breath. The cliff was already filled with blood. The smell of blood was extremely pungent. Zhuowen threw the tortoise on the ground. His eyes were slightly red. He coldly said, "It seems that you also want to die. You actually tricked me?" The tortoise looked at the fierce beast being dealt with just like that. It was shocked. However, after feeling the killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes, it quickly said, "You misunderstood. I didn't lie to you about the cosmic flare basket rock mine. It's in this cliff. I'll take you there." As it spoke, the tortoise pointed to the depths of the cliff. "I'll believe you one more time. If there's any falsehood, I'll turn you into a real roasted tortoise." Zhuowen coldly said and drilled into the depths of the cliff. The depths of the cliff were filled with the fierce beast's blood. The blood of the fierce beast was extremely pungent. Zhuowen simply shut off his sense of smell. Chapter 2380. Origin Recovery Pill. There was no seawater in the deepest part of the cliff, and the environment was similar to an empty plain. However, the air here had a salty smell. Zhuowen looked around and shockingly discovered that the surrounding rock walls were embedded with irregular pieces of ores that were shining with a dark blue light. Zhuowen was not unfamiliar with these ores. Wasn't this the cosmic flare basket rock mine that he was looking for? Moreover, the surrounding rock walls were not small, and the cosmic flare basket rock mine reserves were so abundant that even Zhuowen was a little dumbfounded. One had to know that the cosmic flare basket rock mine was a refining material that many cultivators dreamed of in the outside world. Not just anyone could possess a substandard heaven-breaking divine artifact. Unless one was very wealthy or a high-ranking member of a large force, it was impossible for ordinary cultivators to obtain a substandard heaven-breaking divine artifact. There were many Void Heaven 8 Steps experts in the galaxy, but they did not have a single substandard heaven-breaking divine artifact. There were very few people like Zhuowen who had 3 substandard heaven-breaking divine artifacts at once. Moreover, Zhuowen did not obtain them casually. He had risked his life to obtain them. However, the cosmic flare basket rock mine could allow a void heaven-breaking divine artifact to become a substandard heaven-breaking divine artifact with a 100% success rate. Its value could be imagined. It could be said that this amount of cosmic flare basket rock mine was definitely a huge fortune to Zhuowen. Its value was comparable to the heavenly domain starry sky essence that Zhuowen obtained in the Great Brahma Domain's training grounds. After all, the cosmic flare basket rock mine reserves here were simply too abundant. Xiao Hei's eyes widened as she muttered to herself, "Kid, you're rich. The value of these cosmic flare basket rock mines is definitely beyond our imagination." Zhuowen nodded and said, "Help me excavate these cosmic flare basket rock mines." After saying that, he turned into a gust of wind and began to excavate the cosmic flare basket rock mines on the rock walls in a frenzy. Xiao Hei cursed in a low voice and unhappily followed behind with the blood immortal sword to excavate the cosmic flare basket rock mines on the other rock walls. As for the tortoise, it had already been thrown aside by Zhuowen. It kept struggling with its back facing the sky, but it just couldn't get up. Of course, this tortoise had become like this because Zhuowen had placed a restriction on it. No matter how much it struggled, it would not be able to get up. "Don't be in such a hurry to snatch it. Help me get it down first," the turtle hurriedly said. Unfortunately, Zhuowen and Blackie ignored the tortoise's words. They didn't care at all. Not long after, Zhuowen, Xiao Hei, and the others had stripped all of the cosmic flare baskets in the mine. Zhuowen was in a good mood. Soon after, he arrived in front of the tortoise, picked it up, and asked, "What is your identity?" The tortoise's eyes flickered, and its 4 limbs kept struggling. It snorted coldly and said, "If I tell you my identity, you'll be scared to death. However, my identity can't be revealed casually. You've already taken the thing, so you can leave now." Zhuowen smiled, not minding the tortoise's stubbornness. He said, "Then who is the Imperial Pill Fire that you mentioned just now?" The tortoise's eyes changed and it said coldly, "Did I say that? You might have misheard the name." Zhuowen's eyes turned cold and he said, "You don't want to say it? Do you still want to experience the taste of a roasted tortoise?" The tortoise turned its head and ignored Zhuowen. Zhuowen frowned slightly. This tortoise seemed to have different feelings for the Imperial Pill Fire. Although this was the first time he had heard of the Imperial Pill Fire, he felt that the Imperial Pill Fire mentioned by this tortoise should be an extraordinary figure. However, this tortoise was very stubborn. He was afraid that even if Zhuowen used the same trick again, he might not be able to make this tortoise open its mouth. Thinking of this, Zhuowen decided to take this tortoise with him. Perhaps it would be of help to him in the Divine Pill secret realm. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" When Zhuowen stuffed the tortoise into his spirit ring, the tortoise kept struggling. Zhuowen didn't care about it, and he directly stuffed it into his spirit ring. This tortoise's shell was definitely the hardest thing that Zhuowen had ever seen. Even the phagocytosis in his hand might not be as hard as this tortoise's shell. Perhaps at a critical moment it could help him block some danger. Of course, this was just a random reason that Zhuowen came up with. He mainly felt that this tortoise was unusual, and he shouldn't miss any opportunity. Putting away the tortoise, Zhuowen left the pool. After leaving the pool, Zhuowen followed the exit of the valley and left the secluded valley. At the same time, he secretly used his divine consciousness to scan the guide map that the second elder had given him. Although this guide map only marked the dangerous areas in the divine pill secret realm, Zhuowen could roughly estimate the distribution of the divine pills by analyzing the distribution of these dangerous areas. Although there might be many mistakes, it was enough to figure out the general distribution of the divine pills. This was a desert, and it was full of desert. At a corner of the desert there was a dilapidated building. At this moment, there were nearly 100 cultivators fighting inside the building. Before Zhuowen arrived at this building, he faintly smelled a rich medicinal fragrance. He knew that there must be divine pills in this building. When Zhuowen arrived near the building, he discovered that there was a stone statue erected in the middle of the building that was about 10 feet tall. This stone statue looked ferocious, and its face was ferocious. Its mouth was wide open, and divine pills were spat out from this stone statue's mouth. Every time a divine pill was spat out, it would cause a commotion among the cultivators. At the same time, many cultivators died. Level 5 Divine Pill, Origin Restoration Pill. Zhuowen looked at the divine pill spat out by the stone statue and recognized it at a glance. It was a Level 5 Divine Pill, Origin Restoration Pill. Zhuowen was not interested. Level 5 divine pills were too unattractive to him. This thing was better than nothing, so he naturally didn't plan to fight for it. Moreover, the cultivation of most of these cultivators was not high. Among them, the highest cultivation was only around the Void Sky 5th stage. As long as Zhuowen wanted to, he could kill these cultivators with a single palm strike. Bang! 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 Continuous sounds of fighting rang out. This group of cultivators was obviously in a killing frenzy. In order to fight for the newly produced Level 5 divine pills, they simply used all their means and didn't care about the consequences. There were even some cultivators who were seriously injured. Not only did they not escape, but they also fought even more fiercely. This was no different from suicide, and Zhuowen couldn't understand it. Originally, Zhuowen didn't plan to pay attention to it. However, when he saw the abnormalities of these cultivators, he felt strange. It was only a Level 5 divine pill. Was there a need for these cultivators to fight so desperately? Let's go in and take a look. After hesitating for a moment, Zhuowen stepped with his right foot and entered the building. Moreover, he unreservedly released the aura of the Void Sky 7th stage to intimidate these cultivators. Whoosh! Whoosh! Chapter 2381. Stone statue. These cultivators were all below the 5th step of the Void Sky stage, and they actually attacked Zhuowen without any regard for their lives. If Zhuowen did not release his aura, he could understand. However, he had already released the aura of the 7th step of the Void Sky without reservation, but it was still useless. Zhuowen suddenly blasted out a few palms, knocking out the cultivators who were pouncing at him. He began to feel that something was wrong. This was because the moment he knocked out these cultivators, the cultivators who were originally fighting in front of him all stopped and looked at Zhuowen with unfriendly gazes. Kill! These cultivators actually acted in unison, all of them rushing towards Zhuowen. They actually ignored the divine pill and seemed to have the intention of killing Zhuowen. Zhuowen furrowed his brows. Were these fellows crazy? Thinking of this, Zhuowen waved his sleeve and released the phagocytosis, which surrounded his body. These cultivators did not have any deep grudges with him, and he also realized that something was wrong, so he did not plan to kill them. He only wanted to block this group of people first. Boom, 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 boom. One attack after another came down like rain, and all of them gathered on the phagocytosis around Zhuowen. Although these cultivators' attacks were majestic, it was a pity that the gap between them and Zhuowen was too great, so all of their attacks were easily blocked by the phagocytosis. Zhuowen couldn't help but glance at the ferocious-looking stone statue in front of the building. He realized that the stone statue's mouth had closed at some point in time. Furthermore, the mouth was curled up as though it was smiling. Zhuowen looked at the crazy cultivators around him again. He roughly guessed that all of this should be the doing of the stone statue. Zhuowen waved his sleeve, and a surge of divine power gushed out. Then, it turned into a violent gust of wind that spread out in all directions. Instantly, the surrounding crazy cultivators were pushed back by this gust of wind, and they all fell to the ground in a sorry state. The phagocytosis above Zhuowen's head took a step forward and rushed towards the fiendish stone statue. Rumble! Arriving in front of the stone statue, Zhuowen did not hesitate to throw a punch at the stone statue's face. However, Zhuowen quickly realized that his fist energy had hit nothing because the stone statue had already disappeared in front of him at some point in time. Boom! Then, a gust of wind blew from Zhuowen's back. Zhuowen snorted and waved his sleeve. Phagocytosis landed behind him. Bang bang bang! The wind behind him instantly punched the phagocytosis 3 times, each punch more terrifying than the last. Zhuowen let out a muffled groan. His body pressed against the phagocytosis, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. His gaze landed in front of him, and only then did he realize that the statue was supposed to be motionless. At this moment, he appeared in front of him, alive and well, with a strange smile on his face. Bang bang bang! The stone statue's attack did not change. It rushed in front of Zhuowen, and its fist energy fell like a torrential rain, smashing into the phagocytosis. Zhuowen could only barely block the stone statue's attack with the phagocytosis in his hand. He was extremely shocked in his heart. How could this stone statue be so powerful? Boom! Zhuowen retreated a few hundred steps, while the 100 or so cultivators all gathered together. Cooperating with the stone statue, they attacked Zhuowen with all their might. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He had suffered a space-time injury because of LV Haotian, and he was far from recovering. Now, he could not display his full strength, and this stone statue's strength was not ordinary. It was comparable to the peak of the void sky 8th step. If Zhuowen was still at his peak, he would not be afraid of this stone statue. However, he could not use the power of spacetime now. He was only slightly stronger than an ordinary void sky 7th step cultivator. His strength was greatly reduced, and it was indeed difficult for him to encounter this stone statue. Let's get out of here first. Zhuowen punched out, and a terrifying wind blasted the surrounding cultivators away. He immediately unfolded his torch dragon wings and left the place like a bolt of lightning. However, the stone statue obviously did not intend to let Zhuowen go so easily. The stone statue cackled, and its speed was even faster than Zhuowen's. It arrived in front of Zhuowen and punched out, bringing with it a gust of wind. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. The stone statue's attack was extremely tricky. It blocked Zhuowen's momentum. If Zhuowen wanted to avoid the stone statue's attack, he had to retreat. Once he retreated, he would lose the opportunity to escape from this place. There was a group of cultivators behind him. Although Zhuowen did not take these cultivators seriously, they were enough to block Zhuowen for a few breaths of time. At that time, the stone statue would naturally be able to catch up. Then, it would be wishful thinking for Zhuowen to escape. A cold light flashed in Zhuowen's eyes. He did not avoid the stone statue's punch. He suddenly released his phagocytosis and immediately punched out. Boom! The terrifying punch passed through the phagocytosis and fiercely blasted into Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. He forcibly endured the punch. Immediately after, the torch dragon wings suddenly spread out. His speed instantly soared to the extreme, and he quickly bypassed the stone statue. The stone statue obviously did not expect Zhuowen to use this move. The moment Zhuowen bypassed Zhuowen, its body stiffened. It did not stop Zhuowen at all. Whoosh! Just like that, Zhuowen completely left that area. Then, the torch dragon wings did not stop and quickly flew into the distance. By the time the stone statue reacted, Zhuowen was already gone. Roar! The stone statue's ferocious face revealed anger. It seemed that there was a restriction in this building, and he could not leave at all. He could only watch as Zhuowen gradually disappeared into the distance. The crazy cultivators in the building continued to kill each other. The dead cultivators were devoured by the stone statue. As they were devoured, the stone statue's aura continued to grow stronger. Zhuowen landed in a safe area in the Gobi Desert. His eyes were full of gloominess. The appearance of this building in the Gobi Desert was too strange. Zhuowen did not see such a dangerous place in this place at all. Could it be that the second elder was tricking him? Zhuowen grabbed the tortoise from the spirit ring and said, "Do you know what this is?" Zhuowen showed the image of the stone statue to the tortoise. The tortoise's eyes flickered, revealing a trace of surprise, but it quickly regained its calm and said calmly, "I don't know anything about this thing. It's useless to ask me." Zhuowen sneered. He did not care about the Emperor Pillfire, but he had to know about the stone statue. After all, he had just experienced a moment of life and death. Although the stone statue was not strong enough to kill him, he had a feeling that the stone statue was not simple. If he stayed there for a long time, something would definitely happen. Moreover, Zhuowen had another idea. He did not believe that there were no treasures in such a dangerous place. He later thought about it. The places that the second elder had marked for him were all absolutely dangerous places. In other words, there were no treasures in the guide, but pure danger. Since this place was not marked, there was only one possibility. This was not a pure danger place, but a treasure place. A treasure place full of danger. Chapter 2382. Luo Shan. Fortunately, Zhuowen couldn't use the spacetime ability right now, so he wasn't the stone statue's opponent. However, the Divine Pill secret realm would be open for a long time. Zhuowen could find enough divine pills to increase his strength and heal his spacetime injuries. At that time, he could find the stone statue to settle the score. Speaking of which, Zhuowen had left behind a surveillance video in the dilapidated building. Zhuowen had a clear understanding of the situation inside. Next time, if Zhuowen wanted to come here again, he could use the mark he had set up to find this place. Now, Zhuowen needed to find a way to heal the spacetime injuries on his body. The best way to do so was to find high-grade divine pills. The divine pills in the Divine Pill secret realm were naturally formed. They more or less contained Dao ripples. These Dao ripples were very helpful for Zhuowen to heal his spacetime injuries. After Zhuowen consumed a drop of Heavenly Domain Starry Sky essence, he left this place. He planned to go somewhere else to find other divine pills first. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. In this 1 month, Zhuowen relied on the guide map and understood more than 30% of the Divine Pill secret realm. Correspondingly, he also obtained a lot of divine pills. However, what disappointed Zhuowen was that most of the divine pills he obtained were level 7 and below. As for level 7 and above divine pills, he hadn't seen them yet. It was obvious that it wasn't easy to find high-grade divine pills in the Divine Pill secret realm. Although most of the divine pills that Zhuowen had obtained were divine pills below level 7, because the divine pills were naturally formed, they contained a rich Dao aura, and their medicinal effects were much higher than divine pills of the same level. Moreover, the Dao ripples in the divine pills were very beneficial to Zhuowen's spacetime injuries. At least in this 1 month, Zhuowen had used the Tao ripples in the divine pills to heal some of the spacetime injuries on his body. Now, Zhuowen could use the spacetime ability. However, if he wanted to use the spacetime ability, it might be a little difficult. Other than that, Zhuowen's divine power had also increased greatly, leaping from the early stage of Void Sky 7th step to the middle stage of Void Sky 7th step. Zhuowen believed that as long as he had enough high-grade divine pills, he would be able to reach the peak of the Void Sky 7th step before the divine pill secret realm closed. Is someone attacking the stone statue? Zhuowen's eyes narrowed as he discovered that the monitoring array formation he had set up around the stone statue had been destroyed. The last scene transmitted by the monitoring array was the battle in the ancient building. The monitoring array was not deliberately destroyed, but accidentally hit by the aftermath of the attack. Lu Haotian. In the last image, Zhuowen saw a familiar figure. It was LV Haotian. Of course, there were other people besides Lu Haotian, but they were all small fries. Zhuowen's eyes became solemn. Just now, he casually glanced at the image and discovered that LV Haotian and the stone statue were evenly matched. This made Zhuowen suspicious. How did the stone statue become so strong? LV Haotian was an expert in the Enlightenment realm, but he was only evenly matched with the stone statue. Although LV Haotian had the upper hand, the stone statue was still undefeated. This already explained the problem. This stone statue increases its strength by sucking the blood essence of cultivators? Isn't this improvement too fast? Zhuowen recalled that in the past month, there were many cultivators who entered the building and fell into madness. They killed each other and were finally devoured. At first, he did not feel the increase in strength of the stone statue. Now that LV Haotian was fighting with the stone statue, he immediately discovered that the stone statue's strength had changed dramatically compared to a month ago. What the hell is that thing? If you still don't tell me, I will kill you at all costs. Zhuowen took out the mysterious tortoise again and asked coldly to the image of the stone statue. This time, the killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes was even more intense, and he almost did not hide it. He knew that this tortoise's character was a bit of a bully. He was afraid that only a tough method could make this tortoise listen to him. Sure enough, after the tortoise felt Zhuowen's killing intent, it subconsciously shrank its neck and finally sighed softly. The divine pill secret realm is actually in a mess. This is not something but a Rakshasa. This thing is crazy, bloodthirsty, and violent. The more it devours flesh and blood, the more terrifying the Rakshas's strength is. Speaking of this, the tortoise's eyes were very complicated, and there was a trace of sadness in them. Zhuowen frowned slightly. This was the first time he had heard of a Rakshasa. This thing really relied on devouring flesh and blood to quickly increase its strength. According to what you said, as long as this Rakshasa devours enough flesh and blood, it can continue to become stronger and eventually reach the Enlightenment realm or even the heaven-breaking realm. Zhuowen asked doubtfully. The tortoise sneered. Enlightenment realm? Heaven-breaking realm? Aren't you overestimating the Rakshasa and underestimating the Enlightenment realm and the heaven-breaking realm? A creature like the Rakshasa that can only increase its strength by absorbing the flesh and blood of other living beings definitely can't reach the Enlightenment realm. Even the Rakshasa king of the Rakshasa can't reach the Enlightenment realm. At most, it can reach the two extremes of life and death. After all, this world is still fair. Rakshasas don't need to cultivate to obtain powerful strength, but they are still limited to the Enlightenment realm. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. From the tortoise's words, it seemed that there was more than one Rakshasa, and there was an even more powerful Rakshasa king. Do you have many Rakshasas in the divine pill secret realm? Zhuowen asked tentatively. The tortoise said indifferently, This has nothing to do with you, and you don't need to know. I've already explained this thing to you. Can you let me go now? Zhuowen shrugged and said, No, you'd better stay by my side during this time. Zhuowen ignored the tortoise's angry eyes and stuffed it into the spirit ring again. Then, he turned into a breeze and swept toward the ancient building in the desert. LV Haotian was not a fool. If Zhuowen could think of this place as a treasure land, this old guy would definitely think of it as well. This time, this old guy happened to be entangled with the Rakshasa. If Zhuowen didn't take advantage of this opportunity, he would be really stupid. After a while, Zhuowen stopped quite far away from the building and watched the battle in the building from afar. He even restrained his aura. At this moment, LV Haotian was fighting the Rakshasa in the ancient building alone, while the rest of the cultivators stopped outside the building and watched the battle in awe. Their cultivation wasn't high, but they also knew that once they entered the building, if their willpower wasn't strong enough or their cultivation wasn't enough, they would quickly fall into a state of madness. At that time, they would become crazy and sink forever. Zhuowen silently watched the battle between LV Haotian and the stone statue. He found that LV Haotian had completely gained the upper hand and was firmly suppressing the Rakshasa. Chapter 2383. Candle of Death. I should rush in when the two are at their most anxious moment. Zhuowen silently watched the battle in the building. He could see that LV Haotian had not used his full strength. Although the battle between the two was quite fierce, if Zhuowen rushed in now, LV Haotian would definitely seize the opportunity. At that time, Zhuowen would probably be besieged by LV Haotian and Rakshasa. At this moment, the battle between LV Haotian and Rakshasa was getting more and more intense. The terrifying aftermath of the battle was like a monstrous wave, rolling in all directions. However, this building was also quite strange. Although the surroundings looked empty, there seemed to be a layer of powerful membrane, blocking the aftermath of the battle between LV Haotian and Rakshasa inside. There were quite a number of cultivators watching the battle. However, none of them were affected by the battle. This caused the spectators to become restless. Zhuowen's gaze landed behind Rakshasa, where there was a wooden platform. This platform was originally where Rakshasa sat cross-legged. Now that Rakshasa had left, the platform immediately revealed a hole. This hole was big enough for a person to get in. Since Rakshasa had been sitting on this hole, it proved that the inside of this hole was definitely not simple. Zhuowen even believed that the treasures in this treasure land must be hidden in this hole. Zhuowen silently lurked. Although Rakshasa had been suppressed by LV Haotian and seemed to have no power to resist, Zhuowen knew that even if Rakshasa's strength was not as good as LV Haotian, he probably still had some tricks up his sleeve. Otherwise, why would he guard this treasure land? Therefore, Zhuowen was not in a hurry. Even if Rakshasa was on the verge of collapse, he was still not in a hurry. Moreover, as Rakshasa became weaker and weaker, Zhuowen also found that the layer of power that affected the mind in the building had weakened a lot. Many of the cultivators who were originally wandering outside were in an uproar. The reason why they did not dare to enter the building was naturally because of the power that Rakshasa had set up inside the building. This power had a great influence, and cultivators with weak willpower could easily get lost. Now that this power had begun to weaken, they naturally felt it. Now that the influence of this power was gone, and the hole was so close, how could they not be tempted? Whoosh! Finally, a figure wanted to fish in troubled waters. Like an arrow leaving the bow, he shot towards the hole in the building. Since there was a first person, there would naturally be a second. Numerous silhouettes rushed out and rushed towards the hole. For a moment, the originally cold and cheerless building suddenly became much more lively. These cultivators rushed forward in a chaotic manner, causing the rather large building to appear somewhat crowded. LV Haotian, who was dealing with Rakshasa, cursed inwardly. He didn't expect the mind-affecting energy in the building to weaken because of Rakshasa. The reason why he could fight the Rakshasa with such ease was naturally because of this layer of power. This force was very strange. It would affect cultivators below the 8th step of the Void Heaven stage. Although there were quite a few cultivators above the 8th step this time, this force was very powerful. However, the divine pill mystic realm was so big and randomly distributed. The number of 8 steps void heaven cultivators that could be found in the same place could be counted with one's fingers. LV Hautien wasn't afraid even if there were void heaven 8-step cultivators trying to take advantage of him. With his strength, it was naturally easy for him to deal with them. But now it was a mess. LV Hautien could naturally deal with 1 or 2 people. However, almost 100 people had rushed in at once. With so many people, it was basically impossible for him to deal with Luo Sha and obstruct these people at the same time. Unless he gave up on Luo Sha and got rid of these cultivators who had rushed in. However, Rakshasa was suppressed too miserably by LV Hautien. He had almost reached the point of exploding with rage. How could he let LV Hautien go? LV Hautien waved his sleeve and immediately blasted out several rays of mysterious life divine power. Immediately, several people around him were blasted into powder by the mysterious life divine power. Unfortunately, there were too many people who escaped the net. In addition, the Rakshasa was only targeting him. This made LV Hautien frown, and he was both angry and anxious. Boom, boom, boom. Soon, the first batch of cultivators rushed towards the hole. Suddenly, a strange black flame gushed out from the high platform below the hole. As soon as the first batch of cultivators came into contact with the black flame, their bodies spontaneously ignited. Although some cultivators tried their best to extinguish the flames on their bodies, they sadly found that the more they tried to extinguish the flames, the stronger the flames burned. In the end, they were burned to ashes by the black flame. With so many cultivators dying in an instant, the cultivators who rushed over felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over them. They froze on the spot and looked at the high platform with fear. Under the high platform, a 1-foot-tall black candle appeared. The candle's wick burned with a black flame. Although the black flame looked weak, like a remnant light, no one dared to ignore the candle's flame. One had to know that when the black candle appeared, a black flame gushed out. Moreover, the black flame was not ordinary. Once a cultivator came into contact with the black flame, there was no way to extinguish it. In the end, they could only watch as their bodies were burned to ashes by the black flame. At the same time, the screams became more frequent. The cultivators who had planned to rush towards the hole retreated because of the sudden appearance of the black candle. However, they forgot that behind them was the battlefield of LV Hautien and Rakshasa. Some of the cultivators who retreated were immediately shrouded by the terrifying aftermath of the battle, and then were blown to pieces. LV Hautien did not hold back at all. In other words, he deliberately used his full strength. The aftermath of the battle that spread out was much more terrifying than at the beginning. Many cultivators did not even have time to react before they were blown to pieces by the terrifying aftermath of the battle. In the dark, Zhuowen looked at the black candle that appeared from the high platform and frowned. He felt a chill down his spine from the black flame of the candle. It was clear that the black candle was not simple. "Let me out." Suddenly, the tortoise's spiritual sense came from the spirit ring. Zhuowen frowned and had to release the tortoise. As soon as the tortoise came out, it stared at the black candle that appeared in the building and said gloomily, "Why did the death candle appear? This thing should not appear here." Could it be, when Zhuowen saw the tortoise's expression, he knew that the tortoise knew about the strange black candle? "What is the death candle?" Zhuowen asked doubtfully. The tortoise turned a deaf ear to him. Instead, it looked at Zhuowen seriously and said, "Can you do me a favor? I think you can also see that this is a treasure land. However, it has been occupied by Rakshasa, so this treasure land is full of danger." Chapter 2384. Zhuowen's pupil shrank, but he sneered and said, "Do you want me to court death? This so-called death candle isn't an ordinary item. Do you think I have the ability to put it away?" Zhuowen had seen the might of the death candle with his own eyes just now. It was already very good that he could break through the death candle's flame. Now, he was asking him to put away the death candle. Was he tired of living? The turtle shook its head and said, "Although the death candle's might is terrifying, it's not invincible. This turtle can temporarily control the death candle's flame with my saliva. When the time comes, you can put away the death candle." Zhuowen looked at the turtle with a strange gaze. What was this guy talking about? Why was he so retarded? He actually wanted to use his saliva to control the death candle. Was this a joke? However, Zhuowen saw that the turtle's serious face didn't seem to be lying. His eyes flickered and he said, "Are you sure you want to use your saliva?" The turtle coldly snorted and said, "Have you heard of turtle saliva? That's a supreme treasure. Ordinary turtle saliva can prolong one's life, but this turtle is not an ordinary turtle. This turtle's saliva is a rare treasure." Zhuowen's head was full of black lines. He was just treating this turtle as fart. Also, don't worry. Once the death candle leaves the ground, the flame will immediately extinguish. Only when it touches the ground and absorbs the earth energy will it reignite the death candle. The turtle said again. Zhuowen's eyes lit up. If this turtle was right, as long as he put away the death candle, everything would be fine. However, he was still a little worried that this turtle was unreliable. "Boy, you can only trust me now. Otherwise, do you have any other way to enter the treasure land?" The turtle said indifferently. "Then I'll trust you this time." Zhuowen nodded and said. After saying that, Zhuowen began to pay attention to the battle in the building in front of him. He saw that Rakshasa was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Most of the cultivators who had entered had died. Only a small number of cultivators had escaped. These few cultivators' legs were weak outside. They probably didn't dare to enter the building to court death. Roar! The Rakshasa's eyes were red. With a cracking sound, the stone-like skin on his body shattered. A black shadow suddenly shot out from the countless fragments of the clay statue. At this moment, Rakshasa's appearance had changed drastically. He had a handsome face, but his body was covered in ferocious scales. He looked somewhat like a dragon man. Boom! Boom! Rakshasa, who had broken free from the shackles of the stone statue, had undergone an earth-shattering change in his strength. His attacks had become fiercer and fiercer, gradually reversing the situation of an Feng's battle. LV Haotian clearly did not expect the Rakshasa to undergo such a transformation. Caught off guard, he was struck by the Rakshasa and fell into a disadvantageous position, retreating repeatedly. Die! Luosha's eyes were red as his sharp claws bombarded LV Haotian like a torrential rain. Lu Haotian snorted coldly. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched out. The mysterious life-divine energy turned into a boundless hurricane and blasted out in all directions. Suddenly, the surrounding space seemed to have exploded, and a rumbling sound rang out. The Rakshasa was immediately forced back dozens of steps by the punch. LV Haotian took a step forward, and his right fist moved along with his body. His right fist, which had been retracted, was like a hunting snake. He punched out heavily and smashed directly at the Rakshasa's chest. The Rakshasa wailed as he was smashed to the ground. LV Haotian naturally pursued the Rakshasa. Based on the principle of taking advantage of his weakness, he planned to kill the Rakshasa immediately. However, just as LV Haotian landed on the Rakshasa's body and was about to blow his head off with a punch, a black shadow rushed in from outside the building at an extremely fast speed and went straight to the hole. LV Haotian was taken aback for a moment, and then the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. He knew that the hole was protected by the strange black candle. Wasn't this person asking for trouble by trying to break in? LV Haotian had also seen the power of the candle of death. Although he was confident in his strength, he was not 100% confident that he could break the candle. However, when LV Haotian saw the true face of the black shadow, waves immediately surged in his heart. He gnashed his teeth and said, "Zhuowen? I didn't expect it to be you. You still dare to appear in front of me today. It seems that the heavens have opened their eyes. LV Hautian recognized Zhuowen, and his mind fluctuated, which was immediately captured by the Rakshasa. The Rakshasa was very smart. The moment LV Hautian's mind fluctuated because of Zhuowen, he roared and burst out with all his strength, blasting at LV Hautian's chest. LV Hautian recognized Zhuowen, and his killing intent surged. In addition, he was too arrogant, so he didn't pay too much attention to the Rakshasa. When the Rakshasa's fist hit his chest, he realized it. Unfortunately, it was already too late. Poochie! LV Hautian groaned and flew out, spitting out a mouthful of blood. He gloomily looked at the Rakshasa that got up and continued to rush towards him. The Rakshasa didn't even look at Zhuowen. Obviously, he also realized that Zhuowen's aura was too weak. If he wanted to enter the treasure land, he would definitely be finished. Thus, he simply ignored Zhuowen. Seeing the Rakshasa's indifferent attitude, a smile appeared on Zhuowen's face. Soon after, he took out the tortoise without any trace of politeness and said, "Hurry up and spit on me. If this method doesn't work, I'll use you to block the candle flame and turn you into a real roasted tortoise." The turtle rolled his eyes and said, "Don't worry. This is a matter of life and death. Do you think I'll play around?" With that, the turtle very humanely spat out a mouthful of saliva, which fell on the candle flame. Sure enough, the candle flame became a lot weaker. The turtle spat out saliva again. After spitting several times, the candle flame became extremely weak. It hurriedly said, "Hurry up and put it away." Zhuowen's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He grabbed the candlestick and immediately put it into his spirit ring. Moreover, Zhuowen also found that the death candle was indeed as the turtle said. After putting it away, the candle flame was indeed extinguished. After putting away the death candle, Zhuowen didn't hesitate. He turned into an afterimage and entered the cave. At this moment, the Rakshasa rushed towards LV Hautian. LV Hautian was also ready to face the Rakshasa. At this critical moment, LV Hautian saw Zhuowen put away the death candle and disappear into the cave. LV Hautian's whole body trembled, and he became sluggish for a moment. Although it was only for a moment, it caused the momentum he had accumulated with great difficulty to be broken in an instant. At the same time, the Rakshasa's attack arrived as expected. Boom! After LV Hautian came back to his senses, he could only hurriedly block it. However, he was still blasted back by the attack and vomited blood. Bastard! Chapter 2385. A huge harvest. Luo Sha's eyes were filled with fear. The purple halberd's might was vast and mighty, giving him a life-threatening feeling. Luo Sha also used his full strength. His hands blasted out, and boundless black energy swept out like a black fog, blasting towards the purple halberd. Poochie! Unfortunately, the purple halberd was too terrifying. The moment it came into contact with Luo Sha's hands, it pierced through them. LV Hautian twisted his right hand, and Luo Sha's hands were instantly crushed into nothingness. Then, LV Hautian flicked again, and the purple halberd erupted with a dazzling purple light that pierced through Luo Sha. From bottom to top, Luo Sha's entire body was torn into pieces. The moment Luo Sha was dealt with, LV Hautian's face turned slightly pale. The blood at the corner of his mouth had already dripped onto his chest, dyeing it cherry red. This damn little bastard, if I catch up to him, I'll definitely let him taste the feeling of living a life worse than death. LV Hautian gloomily looked at the hole on the high platform. If it weren't for Zhuowen, he wouldn't have been bombarded twice by Luo Sha and ended up in such a sorry state. Luo Sha's attacks were not light. Although LV Hautian's cultivation was high, his injuries were not light. However, LV Hautian had no intention of healing his injuries at all. Instead, he chased Zhuowen into the hole. Firstly, there must be a treasure in this hole, and secondly, he also wanted to get rid of Zhuowen as soon as possible. This time, He comprehended space-time divine ability, which was already a threat to him. Moreover, he was only at the 7th step of the void sky. If he allowed him to advance to the 8th step of the void sky, LV Hautian didn't know if he could kill him. Therefore, taking advantage of the fact that he hadn't grown up yet, it was best to strangle him in the cradle. However, the moment LV Hautian entered the hole, a terrifying black flame rushed over and instantly wrapped LV Hautian's entire body. LV Hautian's pupils shrank. Only then did he realize that there was a black candle standing behind the hole. Due to LV Hautian's approach, the candle flame immediately turned into a huge dragon and pounced towards LV Hautian. LV Hautian continued to stimulate the profound divine power to expel the surrounding black flames, and at the same time, he continuously retreated. This black fire was truly strange. Once it came into contact with it, it seemed to be endless. No matter how LV Hautian used the profound life divine power, it was difficult to completely expel it. In the end, Lu Hautian spent an hour before he was barely able to get rid of the black flames on his body. His clothes were also burned full of holes by the black flames. LV Hautian's originally heavily injured body was now a bit worse because of the black fire. "Zhuowen, you little bastard, this old man and you are irreconcilable," Lu Hautian roared. How could he not know that the death candle was deliberately placed behind the hole by Zhuowen? Zhuowen's purpose was to wait for Lu Hautian to approach, catching him off guard and contaminating him with the black fire. If Lu Hautian was prepared, he would not be so embarrassed. Unfortunately, he subconsciously thought that the candle had been taken away by Zhuowen, so he was not prepared at all. Taking a deep breath, LV Hautian calmed down. He took a step with his right foot and rushed toward the hole. Another black fire rushed out and pounced on LV Hautian. At this moment, LV Hautian was already prepared, so the moment the black fire pounced on him, he immediately covered his body with the profound life divine power and used it to resist the black fire. Sure enough, the black fire was not contaminated by anything, so it was not that terrifying. LV Hautian also took a step forward and entered the hole. The power of the black fire was not simple. In just an instant, LV Hautian realized that his profound life divine power had been consumed by a lot. After entering the hole, LV Hautian originally planned to put away the death candle, but when he realized that the candle flame on the death candle was getting more and more terrifying, he could only give up on this plan. His injuries were serious, and the black fire consumed too much of his profound life divine power. If he forcefully put away the death candle, the success rate would be very low. With unwillingness in his heart, LV Hautian entered the hole and muttered in a low voice, "Let's take down Zhuowen first, this candle is not urgent." After entering the hole, Zhuowen realized that he had come to another world. This was a valley that was like a paradise. Inside, there were birds chirping and flowers fragrant, streams flowing gently, waterfalls flowing straight down, and clouds and mist lingering around. Above this fairyland-like valley, above the clouds, Zhuowen could feel an extremely rich medicinal fragrance. This medicinal fragrance filled the entire valley, causing people to feel relaxed and comfortable just by smelling it. Zhuowen jumped up and rushed towards the clouds in the valley. The clouds and mist above the valley were actually restrictions that blocked the divine sense, so even though Zhuowen's divine sense was powerful, he could not see what was above the clouds. Of course, when he smelled this medicinal fragrance, Zhuowen did not need to look to guess that what was above the clouds was most likely a divine pill. Furthermore, it was not a divine pill, and the quality of the divine pill would not be low either. The moment Zhuowen jumped into the clouds, he was completely shocked by the scenery above the clouds. The clouds and mist above were rolling like dragons, and within the rolling clouds and mist, there were many colors. If one were to take a closer look, they would realize that these colorful clouds were not mist. Instead, they were divine pills of different colors. Such a large cloud was dyed with divine pills. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the number of divine pills above was. Zhuowen swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and his eyes turned red. After being stunned for a moment, he unceremoniously used his divine sense to form a giant hand and frantically collected the divine pills rolling above the clouds. He found that most of the divine pills here were level 3 and level 4 divine pills, followed by level 5 and level 6 divine pills, and there were fewer level 7 and level 8 divine pills. As for level 9 divine pills, Zhuowen did not find any. Zhuowen also knew that these naturally formed level 9 divine pills were much more powerful than those refined in the outside world. Therefore, level 9 divine pills were extremely rare in the divine pill secret realm. As for the life or death pill, it was even rarer. The divine pill secret realm had opened so many times, and this time, it was rumored that it would appear, and it was not necessarily accurate. Zhuowen cleaned up for half an hour before he finally collected all the divine pills above the clouds into his spirit ring. He casually counted and found that the number of divine pills he collected this time was more than 10,000. Although most of them were relatively low-level divine pills, there was no lack of level 7 or level 8 divine pills. It could be said that Zhuowen's harvest this time was many times greater than his harvest in the previous month. After collecting these divine pills, Zhuowen looked left and right again. After confirming that there were indeed no extra divine pills, he slowly descended from the clouds. "Hey, I say, you should take back the candle of death now, right? I still have something to confirm." As soon as Zhuowen landed on the clouds, the tortoise's divine sense had already passed over. Previously, when Zhuowen placed the candle of death behind the cave, the tortoise was already very unhappy. Now that Zhuowen had obtained all the divine pills in this treasure land, the tortoise naturally wanted to propose to Zhuowen about the candle of death. "Don't worry, I'll go get it now." Zhuowen smiled slightly. Just as he was about to return, he saw a figure rushing over from the entrance of the valley. Chapter 2386. The pursuit. Zhuowen was no stranger to this figure. Wasn't this LV Haotian who chased after him? LV Haotian obviously noticed Zhuowen as well. He sneered and took a step forward, rushing straight towards Zhuowen. "Little bastard, I didn't expect you to be here. Today, I will cripple you." The moment LV Haotian saw Zhuowen, his eyes were bloodshot. Mysterious life divine energy circulated around his body, making him look like a terrifying beast. Zhuowen's eyes turned solemn. He immediately summoned the phagocytosis, and his sleeves bulged with divine energy. Although LV Haotian had suffered serious injuries, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. LV Haotian's strength was not weak. Even if he was injured, he was still stronger than Zhuowen. Bang! LV Haotian's fist landed on the phagocytosis, and Zhuowen couldn't help but retreat a few steps. Zhuowen's eyes lit up with joy. LV Haotian's strength was much weaker than before. If LV Haotian was at his peak, this punch would be enough to force Zhuowen back, making him vomit blood. But now, Zhuowen only retreated a few steps, and there wasn't even any serious injury on his body. LV Haotian also realized that his strength had weakened due to his injuries. He snorted coldly, waved his sleeve, and took out the purple halberd from his spirit ring. LV Haotian didn't hold back at all. He could see that his injuries were too serious, and his strength was severely damaged. But he was confident that even if he was seriously injured, he could still kill Zhuowen. Boom! Holding the purple halberd, LV Haotian's momentum was vast and mighty. His terrifying attacks were like a storm, pouring down on Zhuowen. The purple halberd was like a rainbow piercing through the sun. It blasted on the phagocytosis. Suddenly, the space exploded, and the entire valley trembled. As for the clouds above the valley, they were sent flying by the force emitted by the purple halberd. It looked extremely strange and terrifying. On the other hand, Zhuowen's pupils shrank as a strong sense of danger stimulated his brain. When the purple halberd struck the devouring seal, Zhuowen felt as if a mountain was collapsing. He felt as if he was about to collapse. Poochie! Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood. The phagocytosis was actually blasted away. The purple halberd turned into a purple light, piercing through the phagocytosis, and stabbed towards Zhuowen's vital parts. If Zhuowen were to be struck by this purple halberd, he would most likely lose half his life. Zhuowen was a little flustered. He took out one defensive divine artifact after another from his spirit ring. Most of the defensive divine artifacts were obtained from the spirit rings of the cultivators he had killed in the past. Now Zhuowen was also desperate. Even the phagocytosis was blasted away by LV Haotian's purple halberd. He could only use this method to try to block the purple halberd. Unfortunately, Zhuowen's method was obviously useless. The defensive divine artifacts he took out from his spirit ring were shattered into pieces by the purple halberd almost as soon as he took them out. Zhuowen sighed in his heart. Looking at the defensive divine artifacts being shattered one by one in front of him and the approaching purple halberd, he knew that if he didn't think of a way, he would be seriously injured by the purple halberd. He might even lose his life. At present, the only thing that could get rid of LV Haotian was Zhuowen's space-time wheel. However, it took a certain amount of time to activate the space-time wheel. Now that it was a critical moment, how could Zhuowen have the time to activate the space-time wheel? When the purple halberd smashed all the defensive divine artifacts in front of him, Zhuowen's heart was full of helplessness. The defensive divine artifacts in his spirit ring were basically polished, and there was nothing left to throw. Seeing that the purple halberd was about to hit his chest, Zhuowen gritted his teeth and took out the tortoise from his spirit ring. The tortoise's shell was hard. It was definitely the hardest thing Zhuowen had ever seen. His king's sword was not an ordinary object. It almost shattered the tortoise's shell. It could be seen that this tortoise was unusual. "Hey! I say, little brat, what are you doing? Do you want to use me as a shield?" The tortoise's four limbs were crawling. When it saw the sharp purple halberd, it couldn't help but cry out. Zhuowen didn't care about the tortoise's cries and threw it in front of him, blocking his path. At the same time, the purple halberd instantly blasted over, and the tortoise quickly shrank back into its shell. Ding! The clear and melodious sound was like pleasant music that continuously resounded, and waves of curses and cries of pain came from within the tortoise shell. LV Haotian's pupils shrank. Looking at the tortoise shell that inexplicably blocked in front of him, he was surprised that the tortoise's shell was so hard. Taking advantage of the moment when the purple halberd was blocked by the tortoise shell, Zhuowen waved his sleeve and summoned the space-time wheel. He stepped on it and activated the space-time wheel. Whoosh! In just an instant, the space-time force wrapped the entire space-time wheel, including Zhuowen. Then, Zhuowen turned into a stream of light and quickly rushed out of the valley. Of course, before he left, Zhuowen took back the tortoise as well. "Don't even think about leaving." LV Haotian coldly snorted, put away the purple halberd and chased after him. Zhuowen looked at LV Haotian, who was firmly following behind him, and cursed in his heart. He was shocked that LV Haotian's speed was so fast. However, Zhuowen was relieved that the space-time wheel's speed was indeed fast. Although LV Haotian was firmly following behind, Zhuowen found that the distance between him and LV Haotian was constantly increasing. In terms of speed, LV Haotian, a Life Enlightenment Realm cultivator, was still much slower than the space-time wheel. "We're almost at the exit. If you plan to get the death candle, quickly prepare your saliva," Zhuowen quickly said, holding the tortoise in his hand. At this moment, the tortoise was already dizzy from the purple halberd's attack and had yet to recover. Now that it was reminded by Zhuowen, it shook its head to sober itself up. When Zhuowen came to the entrance of the cave, he immediately stopped. The tortoise spat out its saliva and weakened the death candle's flame by 90%. Zhuowen's eyes were sharp and his hands were quick, and he grabbed the death candle in his hand. Boom! Zhuowen's delay allowed LV Haotian, who was behind him, to immediately catch up. The purple halberd turned into a terrifying purple shadow, cut through the space, and shot towards Zhuowen's back. Zhuowen took a deep breath, grabbed the tortoise that had just spat out its saliva, and used it as a shield again without hesitation. God damned Zhuowen! The tortoise just said such a sentence, and immediately retracted its head into the tortoise shell. It could only helplessly endure LV Haotian's attack again. Boom! The tortoise cursed in pain, and Zhuowen groaned. His right hand that was holding the tortoise was blasted into a bloody mist by the terrifying force. Chapter 2387. Death Valley. Grabbing the turtle, Zhuowen activated the space-time wheel and left the cave with a swoosh. LV Haotian rushed out from behind with a gloomy look in his eyes and chased after Zhuowen. When Zhuowen and LV Haotian rushed out of the cave, it immediately attracted the attention of the cultivators who were still watching outside. It's that Zhuowen. He was actually not killed by LV Haotian in there. This kid is not simple. Didn't you see the flying divine tool under his feet? That speed is so fast that even LV Haotian can't catch up. That's right. LV Haotian is a life enlightenment realm expert. His speed far surpasses that of cultivators below the void sky 9-step. This kid's cultivation is not high, but he actually relied on that flying divine tool to make LV Haotian unable to catch up. It can be seen how terrifying and fast this flying divine tool is. After Zhuowen and LV Haotian left, the voices of discussion surged like a tide. Not long after, a figure came back from the distance. Everyone looked and found that it was LV Haotian with a gloomy face. Obviously, LV Haotian's pursuit of Zhuowen was a failure. LV Haotian was also quite depressed. He didn't expect that Zhuowen actually had such a powerful flying divine tool. He was actually able to shake him off. That bastard only went in for half an hour. There should be more treasures in this treasure land. LV Haotian once again rushed into the cave, hoping to find something good inside. Unfortunately, when he came out again, his face was even uglier. There was indeed a different world inside the cave, but there were no divine pills he wanted inside. Apart from the valley, there was nothing else. How could LV Haotian not know that the real good things inside should have all been plundered by Zhuowen? Zhuowen rode the space-time wheel and sped all the way out of the Gobi Desert. He came to a lush forest. He stopped on the branch of a huge towering tree and breathed a sigh of relief. His whole back was pressed against the thick and huge trunk, and the space-time wheel was also put away by him. The turtle was lying on the branch and slowly stretched out its head. Judging from its movements, the turtle was obviously still dizzy. Bastard, you bastard! You used me as a shield twice. You'll be struck by lightning one day. The tortoise roared at Zhuowen indignantly. Zhuowen, however, was non-committal and said with a smile, "Speaking of which, I have to thank you. If you didn't help me, I wouldn't be able to escape so easily." With that, Zhuowen solemnly nodded at the turtle. Although Zhuowen didn't trust this turtle too much, after all, this turtle helped him block 2 fatal attacks, so Zhuowen was still grateful to this turtle from the bottom of his heart. Seeing Zhuowen's good attitude, the turtle didn't continue to flare up. Instead, it said with a little pride, "Of course, you don't know who this turtle master is." Back then, the turtle realized that it might have spilled the beans and quickly closed its mouth. Then, it looked at Zhuowen and said, "The candle of death is with you, right? Take out the candle of death, I have a use for it." Zhuowen nodded, took out the candle of death, and put it in front of the turtle. After the candle of death was put down, the extinguished candle flame reignited, and a black flame turned into a ferocious head, rushing towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen hastily retreated, but the tortoise reacted quickly and stood in front of Zhuowen. It spat out a mouthful of water and blocked the candle flame. "You are Zhuowen, right? I need your help." The turtle's eyes were serious, and it turned to Zhuowen and said, "What do you need my help with?" Zhuowen was a little confused. It was the first time he had seen the candle of death, and the turtle had such a serious expression when it saw the candle of death, as if something ominous was about to happen. The tortoise sighed softly and said, "I can see that your divine sense is very powerful. Can you give me a hand and combine our divine senses? Then, we will enter the flame of the candle of death together, and see what is happening in Death Valley?" "Death Valley? What is that place?" Zhuowen asked in surprise. The turtle didn't hide anything and said, "Death Valley is the core area of the Divine Pill secret realm, and it is also the most dangerous place. Even a cultivator who has reached the 9 steps of the Void Sky realm has a high chance of dying in Death Valley." Zhuowen's eyes flickered. The Death Valley mentioned by the turtle should be the core area of the Divine Pill secret realm mentioned by the second elder. It was also the place where the life or death pill appeared. However, Zhuowen didn't expect that the core area of the Divine Pill secret realm was called Death Valley. This candle of death is something from Death Valley? Why would it appear outside? Zhuowen quickly thought of the candle of death. Your guess is right, the candle of death is indeed from Death Valley, and the Rakshasa I told you about is also a creature from Death Valley. I don't know why the Rakshasa and the candle of death appeared outside, so I wanted to investigate the candle of death, hoping to see what happened inside. The turtle nodded and said. Hearing this, although Zhuowen was still a little vigilant in his heart, he actually believed it a little. This candle of death was indeed a little strange, and it didn't fit in with the environment outside, and the Rakshasa was the same. I know that you suspect me. However, don't worry. I have not deceived you in this matter. If I have deceived you in the slightest, the heavenly Tao will send down lightning punishment and directly annihilate me. The turtle saw Zhuowen's hesitation, and hurriedly swore an oath to the heavenly Tao. Zhuowen nodded and said, If that's the case, then I will listen to you, but if I find any danger, I will immediately withdraw my divine sense. Don't worry, there won't be any danger this time. I just want to see what happened in Death Valley, that's all. The turtle shrugged and said. Let's begin now. Place your divine sense on my turtle shell, and then my divine sense will guide you, the turtle said again. Zhuowen was a straightforward person. As soon as the tortoise finished speaking, he extended his consciousness and landed it on the tortoise shell. Soon after, he discovered that another cold consciousness swept out from the tortoise shell and immediately began to combine with his own. Zhuowen knew that this divine sense should belong to the turtle, so he didn't resist. Not long after, Zhuowen and the tortoise's divine sense completely fused together. Moreover, Zhuowen discovered that the tortoise's divine sense was extremely cold. It was like a block of ice that would never melt. When the two's divine senses combined, the turtle controlled the divine sense to approach the candle of death, and very soon, it poured into the flame of the candle of death. Zhuowen frowned slightly. When his divine sense combined with the turtle entered the candle of death, he felt a burning sensation. Chapter 2388. Big Black Hen. Fortunately, the turtle's divine sense gave him a cool feeling, which dispelled most of the burning sensation. As his divine sense continued to penetrate deeper into the death candle, Zhuowen saw the raging black flames, which were becoming more and more vigorous, turning into a boundless sea of fire. Inside the vigorous black flames, Zhuowen's eyes became confused. Then, he saw the outline of an image appear in the flickering black flames. The image was blurry at first, but as the black flames became more vigorous, the image became clearer. Inside the black flames, Zhuowen saw a black valley covered in black fog. The mountain range surrounding the valley was not the usual black, but a black that was as translucent as black jade. In the center of the black valley there was an altar. Around the altar stood 9,998 black candles, each of them a foot long. Each of the black candles was burning with black flames. The death candle. Zhuowen looked at the 9,998 black candles in a circle, and his pupils shrank, and he couldn't help but mutter to himself. Sure enough, it's missing a death candle. That Rakshasa really escaped from the Death Valley. The turtle's voice also sounded. Zhuowen could hear the helplessness and sigh in the turtle's voice, and there was also a trace of worry and fear. "What is this altar?" Zhuowen asked in a deep voice. The tortoise let out a light sigh and said, "It's the seal used to suppress the Rakshasa king. Although I don't know how the Rakshasa king managed to take away the death candle and escape from the Death Valley, I know that if this continues, the Rakshasa king might break out of the seal. At that time, everyone in the Divine Pill secret realm might die." Zhuowen's pupil shrank. He had heard from the turtle that the Rakshasa king was the king of all Rakshasa kings. Its strength was terrifying, and it was said that at its peak, it was at the two extremities of life and death. With such strength, it was impossible to find an existence comparable to the Rakshasa king in the entire 8 heavens. If a Tao-confirming expert did not appear, it would be difficult for others to suppress the Rakshasa king. "Who is it? How dare you spy on me?" Suddenly, an evil and powerful voice sounded. Zhuowen felt his mind explode, and the pain was unbearable, as if needles were pricking him. "Hurry up and leave. This Rakshasa king has indeed awakened, damn it!" The moment the evil voice sounded, the voice of the tortoise suddenly became filled with panic and fear. It quickly took Zhuowen's divine sense out of the death candle. "Since you're here, then stay." The evil voice resounded again, and then an illusory black hand suddenly extended from the altar and grabbed at the combined consciousness of Zhuowen and the tortoise. "Let's go!" The tortoise screamed and hurriedly retreated. Unfortunately, its speed was not as fast as the black hand. On the other hand, Zhuowen's gaze was calm and collected. His consciousness was much stronger than the turtle's, and he was also proficient in the soul-slain method, so Zhuowen was not afraid of the black hand that extended out. To put it bluntly, this black hand was also formed from divine sense, and Zhuowen's soul-slain was aimed at divine sense. Seeing the black hand reaching out, the tortoise revealed an expression of facing death. It knew that the divine sense it had separated would definitely not be able to escape this devil's grasp, so it simply planned to wait for death. Soul slain. Zhuowen's gaze was calm as he immediately used the soul-slain method. Immediately, his divine sense turned into a murderous aura that strangled towards the black hand. Boom! 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 The black hand obviously did not expect that this weak divine sense would dare to resist, and even more so, it did not expect that Zhuowen, who had used the soul-slain method, would have such a sharp divine sense. The black hand was instantly shattered. "Let's go!" The moment Zhuowen broke the black hand, he immediately retreated. When Zhuowen and the tortoise's divine sense withdrew from the candle of death at the same time, Zhuowen opened his eyes. His face was as pale as snow, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Although the battle of divine sense just now only happened in an instant, only Zhuowen, the person involved, knew the danger involved. Fortunately, the owner of the black hand did not care much about their divine sense, so it was only a casual attack that was broken by Zhuowen's soul-slain method. But even so, Zhuowen's divine sense was seriously injured. Of course, only a part of his divine sense was seriously injured. With Zhuowen's current powerful divine sense, he could quickly make up for the damaged divine sense. The tortoise opened its eyes, looked at Zhuowen strangely, and said, "Kid, you're not bad, you actually know divine sense method. It seems that I've underestimated you." "I was lucky to learn it," Zhuowen said indifferently. The tortoise looked at Zhuowen and knew that he was being perfunctory, but it didn't care. Instead, it said with a serious look, "I'm afraid I still need you to do me a favor, and that is to help me enter the Death Valley. We must put the candle of death back in its original position, otherwise, when the Luosha king appears, the divine pill secret realm will be completely closed, and everyone will die at that time." Zhuowen's eyes flickered and said, "The Death Valley is the core area of the divine pill secret realm. I heard that even a Void Sky 9 Steps expert will die if they enter there. Aren't you just sending me to my death? You saw it just now, the Luosha king has already awakened." If we don't take action, you will also die, so it's better to take a risk," the tortoise said. Zhuowen fell into hesitation. There was no need to say how dangerous the Death Valley was. Originally, Zhuowen only wanted to enter the Divine Pill secret realm to obtain a Divine Pill and break through to the next realm. He also didn't want to enter the Death Valley in the core area of the Divine Pill secret realm. Now that the tortoise suddenly said this, he was naturally hesitant. "I know that so many cultivators came here this time for the life or death pill, right? If you help me enter the Death Valley, I will help you obtain the life or death pill. That thing is definitely a supreme treasure for you cultivators." The tortoise was a little anxious, and it immediately mentioned the life or death pill. "And? You know where the life or death pill is?" Zhuowen looked at the tortoise in shock. The tortoise said, "I am a creature of the Divine Pill secret realm, so I naturally know more about what happens in the Divine Pill secret realm than you. Naturally, I know about the birth of the life or death pill, and I also know its specific location. As long as you help me, I will help you obtain the life or death pill." Zhuowen thought for a moment, then finally nodded and said, "Okay, if you can really help me obtain the life or death pill, then I will not go back on my words and help you enter the Death Valley." Seeing that Zhuowen had agreed, the tortoise let out a sigh of relief. It looked at the direction of the core area of the Divine Pill secret realm with a complicated expression and murmured in a low voice, "I hope I can make it in time. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for me to explain to that old man." Zhuowen naturally heard the tortoise's murmur. Although he was curious about the old man, he didn't ask rashly. The tortoise's origin was not simple. In addition, this guy actually knew the location of the life or death pill, and this tortoise was very familiar with the things in the Death Valley. Zhuowen suspected that this tortoise might be related to the master of the Divine Pill secret realm. Chapter 2389. Evil Spirit, follow me to the direction of Death Valley first. The distance from here to Death Valley is not short. Even with your flying divine tool, I'm afraid it will take 1 or 2 months, the turtle said. Zhuowen nodded and directly summoned the space-time wheel. He also summoned Xiao He and let Xiao He and the turtle drive the space-time wheel. He planned to use the remaining time to cultivate. The divine pills he had on him were extremely terrifying. He believed that so many divine pills were enough for him to cultivate for a long time. Moreover, he could also rely on the Taoist rhyme in these divine pills to repair the space-time injuries in his body. Time passed by minute. 1.5 months later, the space-time wheel stopped in a mountain range. Zhuowen also woke up from his meditative state. It seems that the divine pills in this secret realm are quite magical. Not only did they repair all the space-time injuries in your body, but they also helped your cultivation reach the peak of the Void Sky's 7th step in one fell swoop. Landing in the mountain range, Xiao He sat on the hilt of the Thunderfire sword and looked up and down at the white-robed young man with a strong aura. Zhuowen smiled slightly. In the past 1.5 months, he had indeed gained a lot. Not only did his space-time injuries recover, but because he constantly absorbed the Taoist rhyme in the divine pills, his use of the space-time force was more flexible and powerful than before. Not only that, Zhuowen's consumption of the space-time divine ability was not as great as before. Moreover, he could now barely use the space-time divine ability twice. Of course, after using the space-time divine ability twice, Zhuowen would be exhausted and would be at the mercy of others. Unless he could now advance to the Void Sky 8th step, only then would he have some strength left after using the space-time divine ability twice. Zhuowen was now confident that if he faced Lu Haotian again, although he was no match for him, at least he had the ability to escape. Is the Death Valley in front? Zhuowen stood in the mountain range and looked into the distance. Tens of thousands of miles away, there was a rolling black fog that looked like a giant beast. Zhuowen knew that the Death Valley that the tortoise had mentioned was hidden within the rolling black fog. The tortoise nodded and said in a deep voice, The Death Valley is not easy to enter. Although I know the specific location of the life or death pill, just to be on the safe side, you should enter the Death Valley with me first. After replenishing the death candle, I will help you obtain the life or death pill. Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed dangerously. He coldly looked at the tortoise, and the latter also looked directly at Zhuowen without any hesitation, without any unnecessary explanation. Are you worried that Rakshasa King will escape? Zhuowen asked. Yes, we should be the first to arrive at Death Valley, so we still have a lot of time. That Rakshasa King is definitely not a small matter. We have to get rid of him first, or else there will be endless trouble in the future. The turtle said seriously. If that's the case, then let's do as you wish. Zhuowen nodded and did not raise any objections. The tortoise looked at Zhuowen strangely. It didn't expect that Zhuowen would suddenly become so straightforward. Many thanks. The tortoise looked gratefully at Zhuowen, then pointed to the south of the black fog tens of thousands of miles away and said, Let's go to that direction first, and then I will tell you the way to enter the Death Valley. Zhuowen nodded and pinched the tortoise, then turned into a stream of light and rushed toward the direction pointed by the tortoise. Landing at the periphery of the Death Valley, Zhuowen frowned slightly. He had not yet entered the Death Valley, but he could already feel a strong evil aura assaulting his face. This aura made Zhuowen uncomfortable all over, and it was very cold. I can't see what's going on inside at all from here. Even my divine sense can only reach a range of 100 meters. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He had just tried to use his divine sense to enter the black fog, but he found that his divine sense was completely restricted. In this environment where the black fog lingered, he couldn't find the specific entrance to the Death Valley at all. Wait for me. The tortoise's gaze was dignified. The restriction on its body had already been removed by Zhuowen, so it could now move freely. The tortoise floated outside the black fog, then stretched out its two small hands, and quickly formed hand seals in the black fog, and finally spat out a mouthful of saliva. The dense black fog in front of them automatically parted to form a path, revealing a secluded path behind them. Both sides of the path were still covered in black fog, but this path extended all the way to the end, with no end in sight. Let's go in, this secret passage hasn't existed for long. The tortoise turned to look at Zhuowen and said. Zhuowen observed the path, hesitated for a moment, and then followed the tortoise into the secluded path. After walking on this path for about 2 hours, they finally walked out of the path, and what appeared in front of Zhuowen was indeed a valley. This valley was very large, and although the black fog was thinner than the outside world, there was still a lot of it, and Zhuowen's divine sense was also completely suppressed. Zhuowen, that secluded path was set up by the master of the secret realm, so it is very safe, but once you enter the Death Valley, you have to be vigilant. In here, death follows you like a shadow, the tortoise reminded Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded, and just as he was about to speak, a sense of crisis immediately crept into his heart, and then he subconsciously squatted down. Boom! About a foot above Zhuowen, a huge axe was flying towards him. It was a long-handled axe, and the handle was rusty bronze, and the axe head was broken. At first glance, the axe looked harmless, but Zhuowen's heart was thumping wildly. The axe smashed into the ground behind Zhuowen, and immediately blasted open the ground. Countless gravel accompanied by a terrifying force scattered in all directions. Zhuowen only had time to take out the Emperor's sword to block in front of him, and was blasted back by the force. In midair, Zhuowen twisted his waist and lightly landed on the ground, and then he looked ahead with a serious gaze. Behind the huge long-handled axe, a huge figure slowly walked over. This figure was about 3 meters tall, which was more than half of Zhuowen's height. When Zhuowen saw the figure's appearance, his eyes narrowed, because this tall figure was not human, but a half-rotten corpse. The figure's head was almost full of rotten flesh, and its face was covered with white squirming maggots, and its 2 empty eye sockets were filled with bright blood, as if tears of blood were flowing from its eye sockets. This figure's body was covered in tattered clothes, like the clothes of a beggar. Chapter 2390. Altar Roar. The tall evil spirit let out a roar and suddenly took a step forward. Every step it took caused the ground to tremble. Zhuowen, who was prepared this time, easily dodged the evil spirit's attack. He stood on the evil spirit's head with his sword and sent it flying. The head was sent flying, and the evil spirit knelt on the ground, completely motionless. The tortoise looked at Zhuowen in surprise and said, "Have you fought with evil spirits before? How do you know that the evil spirit's weakness is its head?" Zhuowen smiled faintly and declined to comment. It was the first time he had encountered an evil spirit. However, when he was in the skeleton realm, he had encountered an undead spirit similar to this one. Back then, the undead spirit's weakness was its head. Only by sending its head flying could the undead spirit be completely killed. Since this evil spirit was similar to the undead spirit, Zhuowen decided to give it a try. He succeeded. Thump, thump, thump. At the same time Zhuowen killed the evil spirit, the sound of dense footsteps came from all around. Then, in the rolling black fog, figures vaguely appeared. Needless to say, these figures were all evil spirit. Zhuowen, follow my instructions. There are many evil spirits in the Death Valley. You can't kill all of them. Go directly to the core altar of the Death Valley, the tortoise said quickly. Zhuowen nodded and immediately took out the spacetime wheel. Together with the tortoise, he took out the Thunderfire sword and the Blood Immortal sword at the same time and let the two guys deal with the evil spirits around them. The spacetime wheel was extremely fast. Although evil spirits often jumped up in the surroundings, intending to completely stop Zhuowen, they were basically blown away by the Thunderfire sword and the Blood Immortal sword in advance. Of course, Zhuowen also assisted the Thunderfire sword and the Blood Immortal sword. After all, the deeper they went, the more evil spirits there were. Fortunately, these evil spirits were not very strong. Although Zhuowen was a little tired, he managed to hold on. Sword Dragon slashes the sky. Zhuowen slashed out with his sword. Terrifying sword chi condensed into 9 sword dragons that shot out in 9 directions. Immediately, the surrounding evil spirits were reduced to dust by the 9 sword dragons. Unfortunately, these evil spirits were like cockroaches that could not be killed. The evil spirits at the back leaped forward one after another, as if they did not care about their lives. There are too many evil spirits. How far is that place? Xiaohei could not help but roar. Zhuowen looked at the turtle, and the turtle looked ahead. It said in a deep voice, "We're almost there. All the evil spirits in Death Valley are gathering here. I'm afraid that Rakshasa King knows that we're here. These evil spirits were all summoned by that guy. Zhuowen, can you still hold on?" Zhuowen looked ahead and found that the altar was indeed not far away. However, there were so many evil spirits in this place that it made one's hair stand on end. Every evil spirit was crowded together, and there was almost no gap to speak of. Not far from the altar, countless evil spirits were piled up together, forming a very tall hill. These evil spirits were all inside, and they were all baring their fangs and claws at Zhuowen. "Damn, there are too many of them. Kid, what should we do now?" Xiaohei asked Zhuowen while blocking the evil spirits around him. It was also a little scared, as there were too many evil spirits. Zhuowen took a deep breath and pointed with his right finger. Suddenly, countless ripples spread out, and these ripples transformed into a boundless sea. At the end of the sea, a waning sun rose. The waning sun quickly rose to its peak, and a terrifying power radiated and exploded around the sea. Then, countless evil spirits that were close to the sea were all blasted into dust by this power. Moreover, this power was continuous. The evil spirits that pounced at Zhuowen were all shattered before they could even get close. Rumble! At this moment, the space-time wheel had already arrived in front of the small hill of evil spirit. Countless evil spirits were being destroyed, but because there were too many of them, Although these evil spirits were constantly being destroyed, there was still a large number of evil spirits that pounced at Zhuowen through the corpses of other evil spirits. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He pointed with his right hand again, and the waning sun that had risen to its peak suddenly fell. Its speed was so fast that it instantly arrived in front of Zhuowen. The huge waning sun slammed heavily on the evil spirit mountain. Then, a terrifying ripple exploded, and the huge evil spirit mountain was smashed into dust. All the evil spirits inside were annihilated into nothingness. Not only that, but the evil spirits that were constantly rushing over were also destroyed by the aftermath of the waning sun. At this moment, Zhuowen, dressed in white, was standing on the space-time wheel. Around him was a vast sea formed by the space-time power. Above his head was the waning sun, making him look like a god. Zhuowen jumped down and landed in front of the altar. The altar's layout was very simple and looked ordinary. On the contrary, the 9,998 death candles that were arranged around the altar were extremely spectacular. The candle flames on these death candles were connected to each other, forming a circle of black flame. It looked like a person's black eye. However, to the north of the death candle, there was a gap where one of the death candles was missing. Zhuowen knew that the gap should be the position of the death candle in his hand. Quickly place the death candle on that gap, the turtle hurriedly said. Zhuowen nodded and did not dare to be negligent. He took a step and came to the gap in the north of the death candle. He took out the death candle and planned to place it on the gap. Just as Zhuowen placed the death candle on the gap, a dignified cold snort sounded, like countless muffled thunder exploding in his mind. Zhuowen's body stiffened, and his eyes revealed a confused look. Then, a big black hand stretched out from the altar and grabbed at Zhuowen's head. "Zhuowen, wake up quickly!" Not far away, the turtle naturally saw this scene and hurriedly sent a message to Zhuowen through divine sense. Unfortunately, Zhuowen seemed to be in a daze and did not move at all. It was as if he was quietly waiting for the big hand to grab him. "Poochie!" Zhuowen suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and the confusion in his eyes completely disappeared. At this moment, the big black hand had swept in front of Zhuowen and could completely grab Zhuowen's head in the next moment. Zhuowen summoned the phagocytosis, and at the same time used the space-time ability Waning Sun on the sea again. The waning sun rose again, and the terrifying power of the waning sun was like an explosion, constantly erupting above the big black hand, causing the big black hand to stagnate for a moment. Relying on this moment of stagnation, Zhuowen immediately placed the death candle in the gap. Whoosh! The moment the death candle was placed in the gap, the circle of death candles suddenly connected, and then a terrifying black flame erupted from the 9,999 death candles. Chapter 2391. Abyss of Hell. Bastard, Alchemy Emperor Turtle, you've ruined my plans. When I come out, I'll never let you off. An evil voice suddenly erupted from the altar. Then, Zhuowen's pupils shrank as he discovered that an extremely terrifying force was surging out from the altar. It instantly broke through the black flames, intending to leave the range of the death candle. Unfortunately, even though the power was forceful, the black flames that were transformed from the 9,999 death candles were so fearsome that they forcibly blocked the fearsome power. Zhuowen was shocked when he saw this scene. Although the force inside the altar was blocked by the black flames, it was still not enough. However, even through the black flames, Zhuowen could still feel the terror of this power. If he had to face this force, Zhuowen knew that he would definitely die. The terrifying force in the altar struggled in the black flames for a full 10 breaths of time. After discovering that it could not break through the black flames, it roared and drilled back into the altar. Just a little bit more, and I'll be able to get out. Alchemy Emperor Turtle and you, Human Cultivator, if I, Luo Sha King, have the chance to get out, both of you will die miserably. A mournful voice kept coming from the altar. Obviously, Luo Sha King was not willing to give up. Zhuowen sat on the ground, paralyzed. His face was extremely pale. Using the waning sun over the sea twice had consumed too much of his energy. After consuming the heavenly starry sky essence, he had to recuperate well. Moreover, after the altar was resealed, the surrounding evil spirits also dispersed and wandered aimlessly in Death Valley. This altar was the core of Death Valley. Zhuowen would not be in danger here. After all, the greatest danger was Luosha King. Since Luosha King had been resealed in the Death Candle, the other evil spirits would definitely not dare to approach this place. Therefore, this place was the safest. Zhuowen stayed here for 3 days. By swallowing divine elixirs and heavenly domain starry pith, he had almost recovered from his injuries. Zhuowen stood up and looked around. He couldn't help but look at the turtle next to him and asked, "I heard that Death Valley is full of dangers, even Void Sky 9 Steps cultivators would die there, but why don't I feel any danger?" The tortoise lay on the ground and said indifferently, "That's because of me. I gave you the safest route. Although you are strong, without this safe route you would have died without a doubt." The safest route? Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He knew the safe route that the tortoise had mentioned, and he had worked hard to reach this place. If it wasn't for his space-time god art, he would have been torn to shreds by the countless evil spirits. It was hard for him to imagine if he could reach the core area of Death Valley if he encountered the other dangerous routes mentioned by the tortoise. And you know what? The real danger of Death Valley isn't these evil spirits, but the hell abyss that can be seen everywhere in Death Valley. The hell abyss is distributed around Death Valley, and it doesn't appear at a fixed time. Once you fall into the hell abyss, even a life-enlightening realm cultivator will die without a burial place. Although a life-enlightening realm cultivator might be able to escape danger, it's still a disaster. The tortoise sneered. When Zhuowen heard this, he was even more moved. It seemed that he had really taken advantage of this time. If it wasn't for this tortoise, he wouldn't have been able to reach the core area of Death Valley. That Rakshasa King said that you are an Emperor Pill Tortoise, and you know so much about Death Valley and even the Divine Pill Secret Realm. Are you related to the Master of the Divine Pill Secret Realm? Zhuowen asked in a deep voice. He didn't ask before because he didn't trust this tortoise. Moreover, his relationship with this tortoise hadn't reached that level yet. Now that he and this tortoise had experienced the sealing of Rakshasa King at the same time, their relationship had become much closer. Zhuowen knew that now was the best time to ask. As expected, the tortoise hesitated, but in the end it nodded and said, "If that's the case, then I'll tell you. I'm an Emperor Pill Tortoise. Back then, I followed my master, the Emperor Pillfire, and the Emperor Pillfire is the master of this Divine Pill Secret Realm. And this Rakshasa King and Rakshasa King were both created by my master. Rakshasa is the product of evil spirits' evolution. There are countless evil spirits in Death Valley, and they usually kill each other. In the end, the strongest evil spirit will transform into a Rakshasa. But Rakshasa King is a different kind of existence. My master didn't expect that a monster like Rakshasa King would be born. Although Rakshasa King couldn't prove his Tao, his strength had reached the pinnacle of the life and death realm. He's much stronger than ordinary life and death realm cultivators. Moreover, Rakshasa King was arrogant and unruly. Because of my master's strength, Rakshasa King didn't dare to act recklessly. Later, when my master returned to this secret realm with serious injuries, Rakshasa King led an army of Rakshasa and evil spirits to besiege my master. In the end, my master defeated him and sealed him in Death Valley. When the Emperor Pill Tortoise said this, it was quite emotional. Emperor Pillfire? Your master was also a Tao-confirming expert, right? And has your master fallen? Zhuowen asked tentatively. The Emperor Pill Tortoise shook its head and said, I'm not sure whether my master has fallen or not. After he sealed Rakshasa King, his whereabouts were unknown. He just asked me to guard this divine pill secret realm and Death Valley before leaving. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He once again thought of the Tao-confirming expert who was dismembered on the blood-stained cliff. Whether it was the mysterious head on the blood-stained cliff or the Emperor Pillfire, they were all Tao-confirming experts from ancient times, but their fates were so miserable. Could it be that something big happened in that ancient era, and all the Tao-confirming experts disappeared because of it? Do you know why your master was injured? And why haven't we seen any Tao-confirming experts in the 8 heavenly domains? It's as if they have disappeared. Zhuowen asked. The Emperor Pill Tortoise shook its head and said, "It's useless to ask me. I only gained sentience later, so I don't know what happened in that era. As for the 8 heavenly domains you mentioned, I have heard about them, but I remember my master saying that the 8 heavenly domains didn't exist in their era. The 8 heavenly domains appeared later." Zhuowen frowned. It seemed that the 8 heavens had even deeper secrets, especially regarding Tao-confirming powerhouses. This caused Zhuowen to ponder on a deeper level. Zhuowen sighed in his heart. He knew that his current level was still too low. Once his cultivation reached the 9 steps void sky, he would be able to come in contact with the lords of the 8 heavens. At that time, he would be able to learn the secrets of the 8 heavens. Moreover, he knew that although the lords of the 8 heavenly domains stood at the peak of the 8 heavenly domains, none of them were Tao-confirming experts. Even the Nadi Shiva domain's Sakyamuni was not a Tao-confirming expert. At most, he was in the life and death boundary. In addition, Zhuowen wondered if the heaven-breaking essence of the 8 heavenly domains was really the heaven-breaking essence. Chapter 2392. Meeting Ma Yujie again. Are we going back the way we came? Zhuowen stood up and asked the Alchemy Emperor Turtle. That path can only be entered, not exited, and I need to find something. Take me there. You don't have to be suspicious, because the place I'll take you to is the place where the life or death pill is about to appear, the Alchemy Emperor Turtle said. Zhuowen's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he said, "Then you lead the way. I'll take you there." The Alchemy Emperor Turtle nodded, and was about to guide Zhuowen to the location of the life or death pill when its expression suddenly changed. "What's wrong?" Zhuowen could not help but ask when he noticed the change in the Alchemy Emperor Turtle's expression. The Alchemy Emperor Turtle's expression became serious. It took a deep breath and said, "Someone found the path I opened and came in." Zhuowen was surprised. Ever since Zhuowen and the Alchemy Emperor Turtle entered the path, the entrance was covered by black fog. Ordinary cultivators could not find it at all. But now, the Alchemy Emperor Turtle directly said that someone had entered the path. This was really unbelievable. Who could see through the cover of the black fog? What should we do now? Should we leave or wait for that person to appear? Zhuowen asked. The Alchemy Emperor Turtle took a deep breath and said, "I left a mark on the path, so I know that someone has entered it. Looking at the path, he seems to be very familiar with it. I'm afraid he's coming for the altar. Let's wait here first." Zhuowen had no objection to the Alchemy Emperor Turtle's suggestion. After the two found a hidden place, they used a powerful restriction formation to completely hide the place. Zhuowen also restrained his aura. After waiting like this for 2 hours, a figure appeared in Zhuowen's line of sight. This figure was very bloated. Obviously, it was a fat man. The fat man tiptoed closer to the altar and walked around it. He clicked his tongue in amazement and said, "There are actually 9,999 death candles here. That's quite a lot." When the fat man arrived at the north of the altar, his face was completely revealed to Zhuowen. When Zhuowen saw the fatty's face, he was surprised. He was not unfamiliar with the fatty. In fact, he was very familiar with him. "Do you know this person?" The Pill Emperor Turtle noticed Zhuowen's strange expression and asked. "Yes, I've met this person a few times," Zhuowen said ambiguously. The Pill Monarch Turtle nodded and said, "This person was able to discover that path, so he must be extraordinary. However, how many times have you met him? Are you a friend or a foe? Zhuowen rubbed his forehead and said, We're neither enemies nor friends. I don't know what kind of relationship we have. The Pill Emperor Turtle glanced at Zhuowen with a slightly speechless expression. After that, it looked towards Ma Yujie, who'd stopped at the north of the altar, and said, From the looks of it, he seems to be rather familiar with Death Valley. Why has he come to the altar? Zhuowen shook his head and stared at Ma Yujie, who had stopped outside the altar's seal. To be honest, he knew too little about Ma Yujie. When he released Ma Yujie from the ice tower, he didn't get any information or background from Ma Yujie. Ma Yujie put his hands behind his back and turned his back to Zhuowen. He seemed to be thinking about something. I didn't expect there to be a seal in Death Valley. I wonder what's inside the seal? Let me try to break it, Ma Yujie muttered to himself. His voice was not soft, so Zhuowen and the Pill Emperor Turtle could hear him clearly. The Pill Emperor Turtle sneered. The 9,999 death candles were set up by its master, the Pill Emperor Flame. How could this fat man have the ability to break the seal? Of course, Ma Yujie naturally did not know that the Pill Emperor Turtle was secretly laughing at him. His gaze became solemn as he waved his sleeve and released several array flags. These array flags spread out and floated above the altar. They began to rotate rapidly. The altar was already surrounded by black flames, forming a black hemispherical light shield. It looked strange and strange. The array flag rapidly rotated, and soon after, it released a dark blue energy ripple. It suddenly rushed out and blasted on the black flame round cover. Bang! The terrifying black flame swept out and instantly turned into a big mouth. It completely swallowed the array flags in the sky. The temperature of the black flame was terrifying. The moment the black flame swallowed the array flags, the terrifying black flame melted them into nothingness. Hee, what an ignorant fool! In the dark, the Pill Emperor Turtle sneered. Its eyes were full of pride. Ma Yujie shook his head and said in surprise, It's really terrifying. Which almighty person set up this seal? It's so terrifying. It's useless for me to continue. It's better not to try anymore. Ma Yujie took dozens of steps back and avoided the black flame. He looked at the terrifying black flame in front of him in horror. Let's go check out other places. This Death Valley is really strange. As Ma Yujie spoke, he left the altar and flew in another direction. Soon, his figure disappeared. After Ma Yujie left, Zhuowen and the Pill Emperor Turtle came out. Looking in the direction Ma Yujie left, Zhuowen muttered in a low voice, This guy is a little suspicious. What's suspicious about him? However, it's really unusual that he could enter that path. It's just that he overestimated himself. He actually tried to break the defense of the death candle. He's simply courting death. The Pill Emperor Turtle mocked. Zhuowen frowned slightly but did not laugh. Instead, he repeatedly checked the surroundings of the altar. After confirming that there was nothing wrong, he was relieved. Let's go to the place where the life and death pill is, Zhuowen said to the Pill Emperor Turtle. The Pill Emperor Turtle nodded and said, Now, follow me. Not long after Zhuowen and the Pill Emperor Turtle left, a bloated figure slowly appeared from another place. Ma Yujie returned to the altar and looked in the direction Zhuowen and the Pill Emperor Turtle left. He narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself, This Zhuowen is really a big problem. Wherever I go, he will follow. That Lu Haotian wouldn't want this kid for no reason. This kid must have something important on him. When the time comes, I'll have to inquire about it. After saying that, Ma Yujie's gaze fell on the altar again and said with a smile, The Pill Emperor Turtle is really a genius. Although his strength is not very strong, his means are extremely amazing. He can actually create such an evil creature like the Rakshasa King. Boom! Suddenly, black energy gushed out from the altar inside the black flame and transformed into an illusory head. Who are you? Did you just wake me up? This illusory head was the Rakshasa king. Originally, the Rakshasa king was completely suppressed by the 9999 death candle and fell into an unconscious state. Chapter 2393. Golden Horn Array Flags. Rakshasa King, I see that you really want your freedom, don't you? You've been here for countless years. It must be hard for you, right? Ma Yujie did not answer the Rakshasa King's question directly. Instead, he asked another question. The Rakshasa King said coldly, You can try. You've been imprisoned here for countless years, and all you've done is make sarcastic remarks. Ma Yujie smiled and did not mind the Rakshasa King's tone. He continued, I'll give you a chance to get out. The Rakshasa King did not believe him. He sneered. These are 9999 death candles. I spent countless years and barely managed to remove one of them. In the end, it was destroyed by that despicable human cultivator and the Pill Emperor Turtle. If you let me out, those two fellows will definitely kill me. Ma Yujie spread his hands and smiled subtly. Of course, I'm not strong enough to break this seal, but you can. You're much stronger than me. The Rakshasa King sneered but did not say anything else. He felt that this bloated fatty in front of him was spouting nonsense, and was too lazy to answer him. Haha, looks like you don't believe me. But it's no wonder. You spent so much time and still didn't see the seal's weakness. You just blindly tried to remove the death candles. Serves you right for being trapped here. Zhuowen smiled faintly. You really have a way? The Rakshasa King was interested. Ma Yujie did not say much. Instead, he waved his sleeve and immediately took out 12 array flags. The 12 array flags he took out this time were completely different from the ones before. They were completely golden like dazzling and scorching suns. The array flags were as thin as golden paper, but they were filled with an unbearable light. 12 golden horn array flags? The Rakshasa King looked at the 12 glittering array flags in surprise and muttered softly. Ma Yujie waved his sleeve, and immediately, the 12 golden array flags overlapped with each other. Golden energy gushed out, converging into a powerful golden stream that fiercely fell, heavily smashing onto the altar that was filled with black flames. The black flames naturally resisted without restraint. However, the golden stream was so powerful that it actually blasted a small gap in the black flames. Then, the golden stream quickly entered the black flames through the small gap. The golden stream that entered the black flames turned into 12 array flags again, and they were inserted in 12 directions around the altar. If one looked at it translation, one could see that the 12 array words translation the 12 array flags editor. Endless fantasy translation, it's up to you whether you can escape or not. This is all I can help you with. Good luck. Ma Yujie glanced at the altar in the altar and the Rakshasa King, the altar, and the altar. On translation, the Rakshasa King on is fire, fire, fire. Hee, Pill Emperor Flame. I bet you didn't expect the seal you set up to have such a big flaw. After I break the seal, I'll kill that Pill Emperor Tortoise and that human cultivator, then I'll destroy your divine Pill secret realm. After that, I'll go out and kill all your Pill Emperor Flame bloodline. This is the abyss of hell? Zhuowen stood in front of a huge pit that was hundreds of meters wide. He looked at the huge pit in front of him in shock. The huge pit was very deep and dark. If one looked carefully, they could see strange black flames burning in the depths of the abyss. Zhuowen was no stranger to the aura of the black flames. It was the flame of the candle of death. It was a flame filled with the aura of death. Yes, the abyss of hell appears without any pattern. You must anticipate and take precautions in advance. Otherwise, you may not even know how you died. The Pill Emperor Turtle shook its head and said. Zhuowen nodded. Along the way, a huge pit that was hundreds of meters wide suddenly appeared on the originally flat ground. Fortunately, the Pill Emperor Turtle reacted in time and immediately asked Zhuowen to use the space-time wheel. In an instant, they left the hundreds of meters area, which allowed Zhuowen to escape from the disaster. When the hundreds of meters wide hole first appeared, Zhuowen couldn't move his body. His whole body trembled as if he had fallen into hell. If it weren't for the space-time wheel, Zhuowen wouldn't have been able to leave the abyss of hell. Now, Zhuowen finally knew why Death Valley was so dangerous and why even Void Sky 9 Steps experts could die here. It was all because of the unpredictable abyss of hell. Fortunately, the Pill Emperor Turtle was very familiar with Death Valley. Although it was difficult for him to know where the abyss of hell would appear, it could determine the location of the abyss of hell in advance. This ability to predict the abyss of hell provided Zhuowen with a lot of protection while walking in Death Valley. In Death Valley, it was inevitable to encounter some other evil spirits. However, these evil spirits were basically unorganized and weren't controlled by Rakshasa King like before. Therefore, they didn't pose much of an obstacle to Zhuowen. Under the guidance of the Pill Emperor Turtle, Zhuowen quickly arrived at the eastern edge of Death Valley. The life or death pill is about to appear here. I don't know the exact location, but when the life or death pill appears, I have a way to help you smoothly obtain it. Now let's leave Death Valley first, said the Pill Emperor Turtle. After saying that, the Pill Emperor Turtle formed a seal with both hands. A complicated pattern appeared on its shell and was reflected in the black fog in front of them. Then, the black fog scattered. "Let's go," said the Pill Emperor Turtle. Zhuowen took a step forward, grabbed the Pill Emperor Turtle, and rushed toward the path where the black fog appeared. Soon, they disappeared into the black fog. Not long after Zhuowen and the Pill Emperor Turtle left, Ma Yujie also arrived at the place shrouded in black fog. He squatted on the ground, pinched the black soil under his feet, and said with a frown, "That Pill Emperor Turtle really knows about Death Valley. The life or death pill should appear here. However, this thing isn't very useful to me." After saying that, the corners of Ma Yujie's mouth curled into a strange smile, and he muttered in a low voice, "I will soon get what I want. This life or death pill will be slowly fought over by those ignorant people." After saying that, Ma Yujie didn't follow the path Zhuowen took. Instead, he rushed in another direction of Death Valley and quickly disappeared. Zhuowen opened up a cave on a small hill 1,000 miles away from Death Valley. He planned to wait here for the birth of the life or death pill. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.